Chapter 1362. Xian Wang Dao Flag, Han Shuyuan. Yu Yuan and the cold snow bear's expressions changed when they heard the Yin Corpse King's name and became silent. Looking at Zhou Yu and the others, Yu Yuan adjusted his state of mind and calmed himself down. He did not want to think about Han Shuyuan to prevent himself from being affected. Of course he knew what Han Shuyuan meant. The current sect leader of Xuantianzong, a primordial spirit realm cultivator. He was at the peak of Howren's power and battle strength. The Xian Wang Dao flag that represented him had been erected for tens of thousands of years. Primordial spirit realm experts were immortal. Such a person, just by mentioning his name or talking about him, he could sense it. How could the Yin Corpse King dare? Looking up, Yu Yuan noticed that in the depths of the open heaven sword formation, there was a large sun and a cold waning moon. They became extremely bright and seemed to be shining down on the space below. The large sun and waning moon were the eyes of the Chaos Kun. It was him who was staring. It was him who informed the Yin Corpse King and had the Yin Corpse King send the message. Unknowingly, he had already gotten used to the open heaven sword formation. Although he could not break free and was still attacked by the 9 slashes of the sky raising, his mind had clearly recovered. "You don't have the right to talk to me." Snorting, Yu Yuan waved his hand in disdain, indicating for the Yin Corpse King to return to the strange stone and not be an eyesore. The Yin Corpse King's face was filled with anger. He was about to say some threatening words when his face that appeared on the strange stone suddenly showed fear and then disappeared. "What? You can't come out, so you let the Yin Corpse King talk to me? Asking for peace like this, isn't it too insincere?" Yu Yuan, who was standing on the beheading dragon platform, laughed strangely as his figure slowly grew taller. Violent Bear panicked, growling as if trying to persuade or stop him. "Don't worry, although the sword formation's power is a bit weaker and has awakened him, he won't be able to come out for a while." Yu Yuan waved his hand, telling Violent Bear not to be nervous. Then, under the gazes of Alonso, Jining Shuang and the others, he walked towards the open heaven sword formation. Chi. Due to his proximity to the dragon beheading platform, the dense sword lights took the initiative to part. "Yu Yuan!" Zhou Yu and Ghost King Tian Song exclaimed in unison, looking very anxious. "I'm fine." After saying that, he controlled the dragon-slaying platform that had shrunk thousands of times and instantly arrived at the center of the heaven-opening sword formation through the tiny gaps in the sword light. The prismatic meteors released crimson sword light and slashed the silver scales of the Chaos Kun, sending out dazzling starlight and countless sparks like raindrops. However, this ferocious star behemoth no longer spilled any blood. His flesh and tendons wriggled within the many wounds on his hideous and terrifying body. He had already stepped onto the path of self-recovery. The power of the heaven-opening sword formation had been greatly depleted by the long river of swordlight, so it was unable to send out tens of thousands of swordlights in an instant. The Chaos Kun's self-recovery speed actually exceeded the speed at which he was killed by the sword light. Because of this, he became clear-headed. One crimson eye and the other silver-white eye shone with the light of ruthlessness, calmness, and wisdom respectively. The combination of insanity and rationality made him seem extremely terrifying. Yu Yuan's heart stirred. The numerous prismatic meteors that had turned into crimson immortal swords stopped in midair, and didn't slash at him again. However, the tens of thousands of immortal swords were still aimed at the vital part of the Chaos Kun's abdomen, where his internal organs could be seen. Yu Yuan changed his mind. In the next second, the immortal swords would still pierce into his fleshly body with the 9 slashes to the sky, and continue to hurt him. The heaven-opening sword formation continued to operate, weaving a sea of sword light and trapping him like a cage. On his forehead, a huge crimson meteor exuding a supreme sword intent that could tear heaven and earth apart and pierce through time and space. The heaven-toppling sword was in it. Yu Yuan. As soon as the Chaos Kuan opened his mouth, he suddenly shrank and changed into that thin, gloomy old man with strange eyes. He was covered in blood, most of his body was naked, and covered in numerous wounds, which looked creepy. You can control the heaven-opening sword formation." As soon as he got excited, his throat seemed to leak air, and he kept making whoosh 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 sounds. And deep hatred and reluctance could be seen in the depths of his crimson and silver-white eyes. This giant beast that had run amok in the Starry River for many years formed a heaven-shaking, earth-shaking sea of blood. When his soul power collided with the sword light of the heaven-opening sword formation, many sword lights exploded. "I've already." He gritted his teeth and shouted angrily and reluctantly, "I can't possess you any more." He suddenly looked up, his eyes shining with terrifying light, and stared at Yu Yuan's chest. His gaze seemed to pierce through the seal of Yu Yuan's flesh and meridians and penetrate deep into her flesh and blood world. Then, he saw Yu Yuan's body, which was translucent and had countless bloodline crystal chains interweaving inside of it. "The soul imprints I left behind, the traces in my bloodline, all my backup plans, and the foreshadowing that I could seize the opportunity to possess you are all gone. They've all been erased." The Chaos Kuan roared hoarsely in so much pain that he wanted to die. It was as if the path of rebirth he had been seeking after thousands of years had been forcibly interrupted. He had wanted to be reborn in the form of a human, in a way that conformed to the times, like the immortal bird. There was no more hope. One of his eyes was as red as blood, and the other was as white as a sheet. It was extremely terrifying. He roared unwillingly, shaking the space and time inside the sword formation into chaos. Many of the weak sword intents turned into sparks and exploded. Many of the deep wounds on his body that were as deep as ravines were also shaken open. After his internal organs, which were larger than the territory of an empire, ruptured again, a thick bloody mist emerged. On the dragon beheading platform, Yu Yuan, who was holding the scabbard, summoned the Gendo blood prison, and prepared to enter the dragon beheading platform at any time. Looking at the Chaos Kuan that was about to go crazy at this moment, a strange look appeared in Yu Yuan's eyes. He didn't understand the meaning of the Chaos Kuan's words. He only knew that the moment he entered the heaven-opening sword formation from the outside, this fierce star behemoth seemed to have sensed something wrong from the depths of his flesh and blood world. Then, it wailed like a ghost and howled like a wolf, exasperated and helpless. He didn't need to use the 9 slashes to prop up heaven, to attack the Chaos Kuan like this, because the enraged Chaos Kuan couldn't care less about its injuries. Its fury had added to its injuries, making it look much more miserable than if it had been slashed by a sword. Yu Yuan didn't understand its abnormality and its strange behavior. Yu Yuan chose to remain silent. She wanted to wait for him to calm down. She wanted to wait for him to vent his anger before continuing the conversation. During this process, he weakened the sword energy of the heaven-opening sword formation, so that the sword lights wouldn't restrict the Chaos Kuan too much, and tried to save as much energy as possible. At this time, the Chaos Kuan didn't want to struggle or break the formation. Erased? His flesh aura seed of heaven and earth, the sun spirit he had spent a long time refining, was connected to his mind. Bloodline crystal chains that carried the profound truths of blood from different races were connected to him. In his senses, his sun spirit was clearly different from that of the other human clan members. For example, the great demons of Hauran. Chen Qinghuang. A light flashed through his mind. He vaguely remembered that he had only seen a similar unique sun spirit on the Empress. It was the refinement of boundless blood power and soul power. "Who are you?" After a long time, the Chaos Kuan looked at him on the dragon beheading platform in a daze, as if it had lost most of its energy. "You've erased all of my hope for a new life. My imprints are no longer in your sun spirit, and my core bloodline has been washed away. I should have been by your side earlier, watching your every move. It's that divine bird. She must have helped you. She must have guessed that I wanted to use you to get a new life, so she helped you erase my traces." The Chaos Koan jerked its head in the direction of the dark wing domain, its intense killing intent seeming to penetrate the boundless starry river. "I'm Yu Yuan, and I'm also Hanch." Yu Yuan, who had always been calm, relaxed. His face was calm, and there was even a smile at the corner of his mouth. "What's wrong? Because you found that you couldn't possess me successfully, so you feel sorry?" Yu Yuan, Hanch. The Chaos Koan's eyes flickered, and its heart was filled with confusion as it stared at him over and over again. However, it couldn't see or figure out anything. "With your own strength, your cultivation base, and your wisdom, you can't erase my unique imprints. I let you grow and do whatever you want in the Starry River because I believed that when I found you, I would be able to take everything from you. But..." He shook his head and said with great frustration, "I seem to have made a mistake. Maybe I should take a look at your soul." The Chaos Koan's eyes moved away from Yu Yuan's chest, his flesh aura, and his sea of spiritual power. They moved to the spot between Yu Yuan's eyebrows. The Chaos Koan's crimson eyes and white eyes suddenly became dim, as if they had disappeared in a flash. In the depths of Yu Yuan's mind, a crimson sun and a waning moon rapidly expanded from the size of a grain of rice. Chapter 1363. Splash, splash. Vast amounts of seawater suddenly poured into the wondrous stone from the depths of the Stardust Sea. Along with it, the huge and thick totem pillars also disappeared into it once more. Jun Chun, Tian Tsang, and the others looked surprised after losing their target. The wondrous stone that was the size of a fist flew towards the primal Chaos Koan, emanating cold light. In the blink of an eye, it traveled thousands of kilometers. "Look!" The white crane, whose blood contained the power of death, let out a cry and pointed at the river of sword light with its white wings. "The power of the heaven-opening sword formation is beginning to weaken significantly." Tian Tsang, Zhou Yu, and Jun Chen looked at it with rapt attention. At this moment, the heaven-opening sword formation wrapped around the primal Chaos Koan, who had turned into a shriveled old man, like a huge fishing net. However, there were no more sword lights flying towards the primal Chaos Koan. The numerous prismatic meteors that shone with crimson sword light were only aimed at the primal Chaos Koan's vital parts. They didn't release the 9 slashes to the sky either. The primal Chaos Koan, which was covered in blood, assumed the form of a towering old man. Its crimson and silver-white eyes didn't shine very brightly. They looked somewhat hollow and stupefied, as if its soul had wandered away. Yu Yuan, who was controlling the dragon beheading platform, looked rather small in the heaven-opening sword formation. He stood in front of the primal Chaos Koan with a grim expression, as if he were secretly fighting it. "Let's go!" Zhou Yu exclaimed softly and took the lead to fly towards the river of sword light. Since it was such a short distance away, he didn't need to spend his spatial power to create another spatial tunnel to send Tian Tsang and the others away. As soon as he moved, the other 3 immediately followed. Meanwhile, countless tiny sparks of starlight could be seen in the depths of Ji Ningxuang's beautiful eyes, which had been shining brightly for a long time. She, who had comprehended the wonders of the heaven-opening sword formation and sensed the wonders of the 9 slashes to the sky tearing the heavens and penetrating the void, also stopped because of the changes in the sword formation and the crimson sword light. The suppression that Nye Qingtian had left on them by the sword light had long since disappeared. Even Yu Mu and Du Yuan, who practiced the sky water sword, were no longer suppressed by the sword light. Among them, Yu Mu narrowed his eyes and carefully looked at the heaven-opening sword formation for a few seconds. He said, "The sword formation is only temporarily trapping the Chaos Koan. It does not continue to attack with the sword, which is very conserving of sword energy. From the looks of it, Yu Yuan and the Chaos Kuan seemed to be communicating with each other. Du Yuan's expression was grim as he said, "If it's possible, we should bring all the sword lights and strands of profound sword intent back to the sword sect." "Let's take a closer look," Yu Mu suggested. Du Yuan and Ji Ningxuang nodded slightly. "Don't go." At this moment, Mo Baichuan's voice came from the icy star under their feet. The three of them were stunned. Crack, crack, crack. The dark realm frigid well that Alonso was standing on gave off strange, crisp sounds from the translucent ice crystals. The Azura chief commander finally withdrew his gaze from the dragon beheading platform that had fallen into the heaven-opening sword formation, and didn't look at the violent bear. Holding the crystal ball in one hand and the silver spear in the other, he, who was much stronger than before, shouted softly, "Come with me." The dark realm frigid well suddenly enlarged, and the cold power that belonged to the dark realm emerged from the mouth of the well. Shirala, Damien, and the two platinum Azuras didn't say anything and immediately scattered around the enlarged well. Then, the well that was connected to the dark realm rapidly brought the strongest Azuras of the Firefly domain to the area where the heaven-opening sword formation was located. "Remember, listen to me." Alonso lowered his head and didn't look at the frigid snow bear again. His expression was unusually serious. At the same time, Sabonis's aura suddenly came from the dark realm frigid well that was gushing out of the well. The four platinum Azuras sensed Sabonis's will and heard his voice. Their bodies shook violently, and they hurriedly lowered their heads like Alonso. At this moment, their minds seemed to have been greatly impacted. In Yu Yuan's small world in his sea of consciousness, a crimson sun and a cold waning moon appeared without any warning. Yu Yuan, whose every nerve was stretched taut, immediately knew that the brutal star behemoth was going to wreak havoc in his mind in a new way. Therefore, he reacted immediately. Whoosh! His Een spirit suddenly grew stronger, and a blood-red soul shadow quietly appeared. The blood-red soul shadow corresponded to his Yang spirit. It seemed to be able to summon all of his Yang spirit's aura and soul thoughts to attack his small world in his sea of consciousness. Behind the Een spirit and the Yang spirit, the main soul, which appeared illusory in his sea of consciousness, didn't look very impressive. The Een spirit, the Yang spirit, and the main soul seemed to be facing a formidable enemy. However, he soon discovered that the crimson sun and the cold waning moon in his sea of consciousness didn't contain any terrifying soul power. His true form couldn't help but look at the primal Chaos Kuan's eyes in astonishment. His eyes were still there. The primal Chaos Kuan's eyes didn't actually leave their sockets, unlike when they had smashed the ancient starships to pieces when it had attacked the Platinum Azuras. The sun and moon that appeared in his mind seemed to be nothing more than a projection of the primal Chaos Kuan's soul. Soul and soul, one Een and one Yang, blazing and cold. This star behemoth, which had been born in the beginning, had merged its soul with the sun and the moon. However, the sun and the moon were only appearances. Its soul was still inside. At this moment, he was using a strange method that resembled the reflection of flowers in the mirror and the moon in the water to project her soul into his mind. He just wanted to see if there was anything special about his soul and his sea of consciousness. Yu Yuan's Een spirit and the Yang spirit's miniature were slightly cold and slightly warm, as if the primal Chaos Kuan's soul was scanning them and exploring them on a deeper level. Fizz, 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 fizz. Tiny spots of crimson, snow-white light spread out from Yu Yuan's Een spirit and the Yang spirit's miniature. He realized that the primal Chaos Kuan was perceiving his soul with the reflection of his soul. With a thought, endless lightning bolts appeared and enveloped the primal Chaos Kuan's soul reflection, forming the sun and the moon in his mind. Lightning bolts fell, but the sun and the moon were still there. Immediately afterwards, flames, hailstones, strong winds that could destroy souls, and beams of crimson sword light shot towards the sun and the moon one after another. The sun and the moon were still there. The reflection of his soul created by the primal chaos koan was still there. It was as if he kept attacking the sun and the moon reflected in the lake, but because the sun and the moon weren't real, they would reappear once the lake returned to normal. "You're too nervous." The primal chaos koan spoke, and its voice came from the sun and the moon. "It's an illusory thing. It can't hurt you or affect you. Similarly, you can't eliminate it. Keep quiet and let me feel it." After these words, Yu Yuan's yin spirit and yang spirit's miniature no longer overflowed with tiny spots of light. It seemed that in a very short period of time, the primal chaos koan had explored his yin spirit and his yang spirit's miniature. Then, it turned to study his main soul. Then, the reflection of the primal chaos koan's soul in the shape of the sun and moon, which appeared in the small world of his sea of consciousness, suddenly distorted rapidly. In the outside world, in the depths of the primal chaos koan's eyes, the sun and moon eyes that he had refined suddenly cracked with countless bloody marks. His eyes were torn apart in an instant. Blood that was like magma and silver liquid suddenly filled his eyes. The primal chaos koan's face and the small world of Yu Yuan's sea of consciousness twisted strangely like the sun and moon, and its expression became abnormally terrifying. He seemed to see something that he couldn't understand, something that was so complicated that it was beyond the limits of his imagination and cognition. His eyes were bleeding. He panted heavily, and from the form of a skinny old man, he instantly turned back into a giant fish. Only when a star behemoth encountered a great terror would it instinctively return to its original form. This was a subconscious self-protection mechanism. Roar! Roar! He roared and struggled violently in the heaven-opening sword formation, as if he had become crazy and irrational in an instant. His limbs crashed uncontrollably into pieces of crimson meteorites, leaving bloody marks all over his body. The reflection of his sun and moon soul twisted for a while in Yu Yuan's small world of consciousness, and gradually lost its aura and traces of existence. The reflection was also ruthlessly erased by some mysterious force. Chapter 1364. Yu Yuan's face was filled with astonishment. Standing on the dragon beheading platform, he had made all the emergency preparations and planned to escape into the inner world of the dragon beheading platform. However, this strange scene in front of him left him at a loss. What happened when this ferocious star behemoth spied on his true soul with some mysterious talent? What did the chaos koan see? How did it become like this? Roar! As the roaring chaos koan roared madly, its boiling heart burst forth with an even more terrifying life power. In his giant fish form, his sharp fins protruded out, and his silver-like fish scales had actually turned pitch black. Behemoth rampage! These words naturally appeared in his mind, and a bit of memory flashed in his mind. Yu Yuan immediately knew that the star behemoth in its rampage would lose its intelligence. However, both the toughness of its body and its blood power would be strengthened. And it was true. The chaos koan in its rampage expanded, and the huge hole in its body healed at a visible rate. The moment it crashed into the heaven-opening sword formation, its black scales were slashed by streaks of sword aura, giving rise to the clanging of metal. However, not a single scale was cracked. Its eyes were bleeding, and its soul seemed to have been severely damaged. However, because of this, it went berserk and showed the other side of the star behemoth. Fizz! 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 Countless streaks of sword aura splashed out of its black scales like dazzling lightning bolts. It dashed left and right, and its enormous body crushed many crimson meteors. The heaven-opening sword formation, which had been circling around it like a fishing net, could not hold on any longer. Yu Yuan's expression grew serious. He had never thought that the chaos koan, who had spied on his true soul, would see an incomprehensible scene, which would directly cause its soul to be injured. It had actually done what the heaven-opening sword formation could not do. However, what surprised him even more was that, after its soul was injured, the Chaos Kuan suddenly entered the strange rampage state of a behemoth. Its body was greatly strengthened in all aspects. Because of this, the heaven-opening sword formation could not do anything to it. It was a terrifying creature at the top of the food chain. Its ferocious and powerful side shocked him. Such a primal Chaos Kuan was nothing in the ancient era when giant beasts ran amok in the galaxy. Giant beast! Berserk! The primal Chaos Kuan has gone berserk. Those who knew about the giant beasts of the starry sky looked at the Chaos Kuan. They didn't know what Yu Yuan and the Chaos Kuan had secretly communicated with each other. Surprisingly, this cunning and ferocious star behemoth's soul had been injured, which had caused it to go berserk. The Chaos Kuan had been attacked by the heaven-opening sword formation and the 9 slashes of raising the heavens, for so long, but only its flesh and blood were injured. The sword intent and sword energy of the heaven-opening sword formation and the slashes of the 9 slashes of raising the heavens had only left him with thousands of wounds. They hadn't truly destroyed his soul. On the other hand, Yu Yuan entered and communicated with him for a while. The Chaos Kuan's eyes were bleeding, and his soul seemed to be collapsing. How did Yu Yuan do it? The way I see it, the sword formation is about to be broken. At this moment, Mo Baichuan of the Primal Yang sect and the 3 sword immortals of the Sword sect were standing in the starry river. Frowning slightly, he said in a low voice, "I hope this battle doesn't go out of control and completely change the domain of Firefly. After all, the frigid abyss is still here, and the Howran Great World needs the stability of the domain of Firefly." Yu Mu smiled bitterly. "Once the sword formation is broken, I'm afraid the domain of Firefly will be finished." After the Berserk Chaos Kuan charged out of the heaven-opening sword formation, no one knew how it would destroy the Starry River or what its next target would be. If the Chaos Kuan couldn't wake up soon, this Azura domain would probably become the next domain of Dark Forest. Woo! Yu Yuan heard the fierce bear's howl from outside the sword formation with great clarity. It told Yu Yuan to let go of the heaven-opening sword formation, so that the Chaos Kuan wouldn't be bound anymore. Yu Yuan was taken aback. Open the heaven-opening sword formation. The Berserk Chaos Kuan won't remember its original plan. It won't remember that it wanted to possess you. Holding his bamboo flute like a sword, Junshin said with a smile, "Those Azura seem to be up to something. Why don't you let them deal with the Berserk Chaos Kuan?" Upon hearing these words, Yu Yuan shot a glance at the dark domain frigid well from inside the heaven-opening sword formation. Standing on the well, Alonso's expression was grim. Shirala, Damien, and the other 2 Platinum Azuras were doing their best to restrain themselves, but Yu Yuan felt that they were filled with killing intent. Roar! Seeing them approach, the fierce bear roared angrily at them. It must have told Alonso and the other Platinum Azuras not to approach the heaven-opening sword formation, or get close to it or Yu Yuan. It was very dissatisfied that Alonso and the dark domain frigid well had flown away, so it roared again to warn them. Unfortunately, this time, Alonso chose to turn a blind eye and turn a deaf ear to it. He very clearly rejected it. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh! The cold mist from all directions was gathered due to its bloodline latent ability. Like a translucent barrier, it appeared near the flying dark domain cold well. "My apologies." Alonso shook his head apologetically. Boom! The plane landing cage, that had imprisoned Ji Ningxuang for a long time, suddenly enlarged thousands of times and appeared above the frigid snow bear's head. It looked confused, as if it didn't expect the Azura race to treat it like this. It stood there in a daze, watching as the Sa Luo cage fell and wrapped around its mountainous body. Pop! Golden lightning and silver threads pierced into its flesh and numbed its bloodline. The icy barriers and light shields that were surging towards Alonso and Dark Domain Cold Well suddenly exploded and disintegrated. "Please stay in the plane landing cage." Yu Yuan and the dragon beheading stage are too important to us. We must get them. Alonso continued to approach rapidly. His eyes were as firm as a mountain, showing his determination to win. I've asked Sabonis about what I've done. I've received his permission. The fierce bear roared. Inside the plane landing cage, it started to struggle and attack like the Chaos Kun. However, the restraining power of the gold and silver threads in the pseudo-cage was obviously stronger than that of Jining Shuang. The strings that had pierced into its flesh and intertwined with its bloodline crystal chains, making it unable to cast any of its bloodline magics. Please stay calm. You know that the plane landing cage was created to deal with giant dragons and great demons, not the humans of Hauran. At that time, humans were just food for giant dragons and great ancient demons. The plane landing cage's full power can only be displayed against you, so please don't act rashly. Alonso reminded him sincerely. Swoosh! The Azura race commander's silver spear abruptly flew out of the dark domain frigid well. The dark power of absolute frost that came from the dark domain followed the silver spear and flew towards Yu Yuan at the center of the heaven-opening sword formation. The sharp spear intent actually passed through the heaven-opening sword formation and caused Yu Yuan to feel a stabbing pain between his eyebrows. The flying silver spear was wrapped in a strange cold darkness and turned into a thick pitch-black lightning bolt. Wherever the lightning passed, all the light in the sky was devoured. One realm after another suddenly turned from day to night. Even the dim starry river turned pitch black as lightning streaked across the sky. Sabonis has bestowed this spear with unparalleled divine might. Ghost King Tian Song's deafening voice came from the depths of the darkness. Inside the heaven-opening sword formation, Yu Yuan suddenly felt as if the starry sky outside the sword formation had been smeared with ink. He couldn't see any light at all. Bao Xiong, Jun Chen, Zhou Yu, and the others were all drowned in darkness. He felt as if he had returned to the Thousand Birds realm and saw absolute frost erupting from a dark domain frigid well, enveloping the entire realm like a pitch-black curtain. This time, it drowned the entire starry sky. Bzzz. Bzzz. The heaven-raising sword suddenly let out a sword cry from inside an enormous meteor. The sword's soul inside locked onto Yu Yuan's position and suddenly flew towards him. Yu Yuan's arm bones became unbearably hot, as if they were burning irons. This familiar feeling. He took a deep breath and stopped thinking about the primal Chaos Kun. All of his attention was focused on the darkness outside. He and the divine sword began to resonate. Thump, thump, thump. His powerful heartbeat rumbled like a drum. Waves of mighty blood power bloomed from the yang spirit body in his flesh aura microcosm. It was as if thousands of crimson clouds had flown from his yang spirit to his flesh aura microcosm. Swoosh, swoosh. His flesh aura, soul power, and pure spiritual power were crazily devoured by the scabbard. Then, the scabbard left his hand and fell towards the flying meteor. Dazzling divine light burst out of the meteor, causing pieces of rubble to fall off. Because of this, the meteor changed its direction and no longer stubbornly tried to reach Yu Yuan. More rubble cracked open, and crimson lava seemed to be flowing in the depths of the enormous crimson meteor. The aura of the extremely rich sword energy made Yu Yuan, who had yet to hold his sword, feel his mind sway. Finally, the heaven-raising sword, hidden deep inside, instantly passed through the heaven-opening sword formation and rushed into the dark starry sky outside with sword intent that could destroy the void and shatter all realms. Chapter 1365. Spirit extinguishing, soul severing, star shattering, moon falling, sun splitting, evil punishing, demon subduing, demon shocking, and see God. Rays of unparalleled sword light that originated from the 9 slashes of raising the sky flew out of the prismatic meteors and rapidly sank into the scabbard before being transferred to the flying divine sword. Standing on the dragon beheading platform, Yu Yuan's eyes were bright as he stared at the sword light without blinking. His soul, flesh, blood, and spirit energy were attached to the meteor where the sword of raising the sky was hidden. He sensed the mysteries of the sword intent within it and sensed the profound trajectories of the 9 sword forms. In a daze, he seemed to see an otherworldly figure holding a divine sword and explaining the arcane arts of the sword to him in detail. The obscure parts of the sword arts suddenly became clear. His soul and power were connected to the sword soul in the divine sword. He could sense everything through the divine sword. The divine sword seemed to have become his arm, an extension of his limbs. He didn't need to hold the sword. With a thought, the sword could move according to his will and adjust the slightest trajectory. His soul thought, his spirit energy, and his flesh and blood ignored the restrictions of space and could be easily transferred into the divine sword. Even if he closed his eyes, he would still be able to see every single change in the divine sword. The divine sword could also become his eyes. It could see through the darkness and absolute coldness and see everything he wanted to see. He used his soul to sense the sword art's mysteries. In the depths of absolute darkness, the divine sword turned into a crimson meteor and seized part of the sword energy in the river of sword light. The moment it passed through the heaven-opening sword formation, it suddenly tore through the darkness. Wherever the crimson meteor passed, the pitch-black sky was torn open. At this moment, the heaven-opening sword formation that trapped the primal chaos koan suddenly dissipated. The river of sword light left behind by Nye Qingtian flew into the crimson meteor and into the scabbard that left Yu Yuan's hand. The scabbard was like a bottomless pit that instantly swallowed the river of sword light that stretched for thousands of kilometers. Because of this, the primal chaos koan was freed. As for the crimson meteor, it released a terrifying sword intent that made all living beings in the Firefly starfield tremble in fear. Rip. Whoosh. The starry sky around the crimson meteor seemed to be unable to bear such an exaggerated sword intent. Dense spatial cracks appeared, and many unknown light beams appeared. Everyone who could see the crimson meteor held their breath. Nye Qingtian. This name appeared in the depths of everyone's hearts and souls. The divine sword and the sword energy left behind by the peerless great sword immortal after he had passed away for many years could actually form such a powerful sword light. Pung! A ball of silver light suddenly exploded. Billions of snow-white light spots fell like a torrential rain in the cold, gloomy space where the darkness had faded away. The tip of Alonso's silver spear exploded. When the crimson meteor passed through the heaven-opening sword formation, it first broke the sky curtain of cold energy that Shura of Gojoseon Sabonis had attached to the silver battle spear. Then, he made the tip of the silver spear explode. On top of the dark domain cold well, the armor on Alonso's chest cracked open, and golden blood flowed out. His majestic body seemed to shrivel the moment the tip of the silver battle spear exploded. This was a sign that his vast blood energy had been greatly depleted in a short period of time. It meant that he had endured an extremely terrifying attack. Commander! Shirala, Damien, and the other 2 Platinum Azuras reached out with their 8 hands and pressed them on his back, shoulders, waist, and other vital points. They injected rich blood energy into Alonso's body to help him resist the sword. However, Rip. Wisps of tiny crimson sword light shot out of the meteor and accurately cut through the golden lightning and silver threads that enveloped the frigid snow bear like carving knives. The Azura race had spent countless spirit materials to create the primal fall cage in the primordial era. A pseudo-saint artifact was useless just like that. Whoosh! The crimson meteor, wrapped in an earth-shattering sword intent, suddenly fell towards the dark domain cold well. At the mouth of the well, more than half of the natural spikes on Alonso's shoulders were broken. Blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth uncontrollably. Seeing the divine sword fall, he let out a muffled groan and spat out a mouthful of golden blood. He hurriedly pulled Damien, Shirala, and the other platinum Azuras into the crystal ball. Let's avoid it first. The crystal ball wrapped around them and disappeared into thin air with a flash of light. Crack! The dark domain cold well was broken through by the crimson meteor and torn apart by the terrifying sword light. Countless tiny cold crystals sputtered out, filling the entire starry sky. The crimson meteor paused for a moment before suddenly flying into the star with the frigid abyss's mouth. It disappeared in a flash. Alonso's pained screams immediately came from that small world. Then, the realm barrier that Wild Bear had repaired exploded like firework. At the peak of the snowy mountain where Yu Yuan had once sat, a crystal ball cracked. The fine crimson sword light seemed to cut the crystal ball and the illusory world inside the crystal ball. Right before the crystal ball was about to explode, a layer of golden blood film appeared and forcefully stabilized the world inside the crystal ball, activating another bloodline ability. Once again, the golden crystal ball disappeared into thin air without a trace. And the crimson meteor's sword energy seemed to be running out at this point. Instead of continuing to chase after Alonso, the crimson meteor fell into the deep sea where Wild Bear was floating and instantly reached the bottom of the sea. After a crisp sound, the blocked frigid abyss's mouth was actually unblocked again. The scabbard, sword soul, and sword blade combined. The complete heaven-piercing sword suddenly pierced through the frigid abyss's mouth. The divine sword seemed to cut through the sword of the earth Gu Xingkue's seal and reach the nine hells cold abyss of the Howran Great World before finally disappearing. The darkness faded away, and the cage was destroyed. Alonso, whose spear tip had exploded and whose crystal ball had cracked, was hiding somewhere. He didn't dare to show his face again. Freed, Wild Bear growled in a hoarse voice. It arrived above the planet that had lost its realm barrier. Looking at the deep sea that was shrouded in white mist and sensing the cold energy of the Firefly domain, it went deeper into the sea. It knew that Nye Qingtian had been full of feelings for the Howran Great World even at the time of his death. The Divine Sword and the Sword Soul inside the Divine Sword clearly knew all of Nye Qingtian's thoughts and his last wishes. Therefore, it still opened the passage and made the frigid abyss's mouth unblocked again. What surprised and puzzled Wild Bear was that the Divine Sword had returned to Howran. It thought that the complete Divine Sword would obediently fall into Yu Yuan's hands and be wielded by Yu Yuan to roam the universe and command countless worlds. The heaven-raising sword has returned to Howran. Yu Mu's eyes widened, his face glowing. He looked at the icy world below Wild Bear, and then at Yu Yuan, who was standing on the dragon beheading platform with a thoughtful expression. How can this be? Jining Shuang looked fascinated. She said softly in a dreamy voice, I think I know what's going on. Du Yuan and Yu Mu suddenly looked at her. The sword intent contained in the beams of sword light that formed the heaven-raising sword formation came from the great sword immortals of the sword sect who died in battle in outer space. The rivers of sword light are actually the tomb of sword intent. Their last wishes were that the mysteries of the sword they comprehended could return to Howran one day. Return to the sword sect's sword cavern. Jining Shuang was filled with deep veneration. Du Yuan and Yu Mu shuddered, their eyes also filled with respect. Even though Senior Nye had parted ways with the sword sect, he still respected the wishes of those people. The reason why the wisps of sword intent that he collected from his fellow sword immortals in the Starry River was because he wanted to bring them back to their homeland one day. The heaven-raising sword shouldn't have shown up here because he knew that the primal chaos Kuan was here. Instead, he waited for Yu Yuan to show up so that he could collect those sword light with his scabbard and send them back, fulfilling his promise to his fellow sword immortals. Jining Shuang's words were powerful and resonant. Du Yuan, Yu Mu, and Mo Baichuan from the primal Yang sect all nodded slightly after hearing her word. They believed in Jining Shuang's judgment, and knew that the divine sword returning to Howren was probably what Jining Shuang had said: return the sword intent and sword incantations of the great sword immortals that had died in outer space to the sword sect. It would allow the juniors of the sword sect to follow their Tao of the sword and rush out of Howren's world. Nye Qin Tian had helped them fulfill their great wish. No matter what happened back then, that senior from the sword sect was loyal to the sword sect. Jining Shuang sighed softly and said, in fact, when we were in danger, the suppression that the rivers of sword light exerted on us quietly disappeared. He had feelings for the sword sect and favored it. Chapter 1366. The sky-piercing sword returned to Howren. To anyone, this was an outcome that was completely unexpected. It was extremely surprising, because there was no successor of the 9 slashes to the sky in the Howren Great World. And the reason why Nye Qin Tian died was because the 5 supreme forces had contributed the most. The sword sect had also sent out many sword immortals. He should have been hostile to the sword sect and hated the other 4 supreme forces. But the divine sword that respected his will and wishes had gathered the power of the river of sword lights. As soon as it released a shocking sword attack, it pierced through the blocked, cold abyss and disappeared from the Howren Great World. Many people didn't understand the reason. Roar! The berserk chaos Kuan stumbled in the boundless river of stars with blood flowing out of its eyes. He opened his mouth and inhaled. Very naturally, he swallowed the wondrous stone that he had refined. Inside the strange stone were the Stardust Sea region, the Een Corpse King, Lin Zhuyun, and the demon totem poles. However, he didn't regain his lucidity and intelligence just because he had swallowed the strange stone. It seemed that it couldn't hear the roars and shouts of the Een Corpse King and Lin Zhuyun in its body. Boom! Its body was black and its wounds were quickly healing. Its brute force was earth-shattering as it smashed the icy stars along the way. Its body was bathed in cold light, and its terrifying wounds automatically absorbed the power. It maintained its berserk state and instinctively destroyed the star realms, using the energy contained in the stars to heal its injuries. Jun Chen, Zhou Yu, Tianzong, and the White Crane were scattered in the 4 corners of the dragon beheading platform under Yu Yuan's feet. They looked at Yu Yuan with eyes full of surprise. The previous sword attack was destined to be recorded in the history book. It was destined to be the focus of everyone's attention. Most of the sword energy in that strike naturally came from the long river of sword light that Nye Qin Tian had left behind. The blade, the scabbard, and the sword soul combined. It was like a human cultivator combining the Yin spirit, the Yang spirit, and the main soul into one. It could be seen as the true complete form. The complete form of the divine sword used the sword energy accumulated for thousands of years to slash out. Yu Yuan could be considered the wielder of this sword. This alone was enough to make Yu Yuan's name resound throughout the heavens and the outside world. From now on, Yu Yuan, who came from Howren, would be noticed by all the intelligent beings in the world. Everyone who could be ranked would know this name, because he was the one who controlled the divine sword to break through the endless darkness and absolute cold. He first tore apart the darkness balance of the Shura of Gojoseon and Sabonis, and then shattered Alonso's silver spear. Because of this, the Shura clan's Saw Luo cage, which had been passed down for generations, was completely destroyed and could not be repaired. The godly sword had even opened up the entrance to the frigid abyss and seemed to have clashed with the sword of earth. Gu Xinkue, who was protecting Howren, thinking of the terrifying scene just now, Jun Chen, Zhou Yu, and the White Crane looked at Yu Yuan again with different eyes. Only Tianzong, who knew Yu Yuan's true identity, was as calm as ever, as if he had long known that since he was the original dragon slayer, and since the dragon-slaying platform was under his feet, Yu Yuan should be able to do this. That sword. Sitting on the blue devil's tear, Tianzong asked softly with a calm expression, pretending to be surprised. At this time, The blue devil's tear was as clear as a gem without any impurities, releasing a dark blue light. However, once it got too close to the dragon-slaying platform, the blue devil's tear would spew out broken light at the corners. As Tian Tsang spoke, he sensed that something was wrong and moved slightly away. This was because he was keenly aware that the blood spirit altar, which the blue devils had spent a lot of money to build, would have its pure energy extracted by the dragon-slaying platform. It wasn't that Yu Yuan did it on purpose, but that the mysterious dragon-slaying platform had this property and magic. That person collected the sword intent of many great sword immortals who died in battle in outer space, and sent it to the sword sect of Howren. Yu Yuan had calmed down a long time ago, because before the sword spirit rushed to the entrance of the frigid abyss, it had apologetically told him the truth and reason. It told him that it would follow Nie Qingtian's last wish and bring the sword intent of those great sword immortals safely back to Howren and scatter it in the sword cave. It could be considered as acknowledging the ancestors and returning to the sect. Yu Yuan could even vaguely feel that at this time, in the sword cave of the sword sect on the Tianyuan continent in Howren, fine sword light was flying in the sky and then falling like lightning. There were more sword light and strange sword intent wandering in the depths of the sword cave. Slowly, they merged into the wondrous sword cave and turned into bright bolts of lightning for the disciples of the sword sect to comprehend. If there was a resonance, the sword light that contained the essence of the sword Tao would evolve into sword incantations that would be branded in the hearts and minds of the juniors. Then, a new generation of successors would be found. The sword Tao of the deceased would be passed down. Nie Qingtian is indeed a hero. Jun Chen, who was waving his sleeves and refining 2 clusters of stars into them, praised generously. Then, he looked at the stars in the distance with a cautious expression and said, "Alonso is still here. Alonso." White Crane and Zhou Yu's eyes flashed with vigilance. That divine sword shouldn't have chosen to return to Howren at this time, Tian Tsang said quietly. Alonso was still there, and the berserk Chaos Kuan was still alive. It was relying on the berserk nature of a behemoth to recover from its injuries through the stars in the Firefly domain. The complicated situation hadn't calmed down yet. Yu Yuan ignored them and looked between Zhou Yu and Junchen. He looked at the frigid snow bear, who was covered in fine wounds and had lost a lot of its snow-white fur. "Are you all right? Yu. It let out a sorrowful growl, as if it couldn't accept the Azura race's betrayal. Alonso had clearly said that he had received Sabonis's instructions, so he had used the sugar drop cage. In the frigid snow bear's heart, Sabonis was still the simple young Azura race warrior from back then. Sabonis, with a strong physique and a saber in hand, was fighting in a cold foreign land, fighting with strange beasts. The scene of him being found by Sabonis after he was seriously injured and treated by Sabonis seemed to have happened just yesterday. Out of admiration and the ancient contract with the Azura race, it had helped Sabonis break through his bloodline and given him cold crystals. Without its help, the king of the Azura race might not be the current Sabonis. It had never thought that the simple and honest youth that it had protected and accompanied all the way to the top would actually issue an order that targeted it. It was a bit disappointed, but more than that, it felt sad and disappointed. "It's good that you're fine. Be careful. After the divine sword left, I have a feeling that Alonso will attack again. As for the Firefly domain that you rule." Seeing the primal chaos Kuan wreaking havoc in realms and killing Azuras, Yu Yuan felt helpless. He knew that if the Chaos Kuan continued to go berserk, the Firefly domain would eventually become the next dead galaxy. However, he didn't have the sword in his hand right now, and there were no rivers of sword light hanging in the sky. He couldn't use the heaven-opening sword formation again. The berserk Chaos Kuan's defense was at its peak, and its brute strength was also at its peak. It was very difficult to deal with. "I'd like to see if that Azura general is going to watch the destruction of the Firefly domain with cold eyes," Jun Chun curled his lips, his tone incomparably cold. Apparently, he didn't care about the life and death of the Azura race in this domain. Alonso is quite bold. I can't believe he dared to attack you before the Chaos Kuin is finished. Zhou Yu chimed in and then said, Shi Quan was killed by this man. The Azura race must pay the price. At the mention of this, the White Crane, who had been comprehending death power, let out a low cry. In his crane form, he and Shi Quan had been at loggerhead. However, after Shi Quan's death, he still felt a bit sad. Now, he had lost one of his companions. Swish, swish, swish. Mo Baichuan and the 3 sword immortals of the sword sect turned into streaks of light and flames, and flew towards the icy star with the frigid abyss's mouth, and scattered near the melting ice in the depths of the sea. Among the 4 of them, Mo Baichuan, Du Yuan, and Yu Mu looked down into the depths of the sea, as if they could see the frigid abyss's mouth. They seemed to be sensing something in silence. Jining Shuang, the Sword of Starfrost, was the only one who was looking at Yu Yuan on the dragon-slaying platform with a concerned look in her beautiful eyes, even though she was standing off to the side. It seemed that she wanted to ask him how he was doing. Chapter 1367. Jining Shuang, dressed in white, with a cold temperament, slowly landed on the top of the snow-capped mountain. That was the place where Yu Yuan had been sitting and tempering her young spirit. She seemed to have chosen this place only because Yu Yuan had been there not long ago. 300 years later, she, who had become a sword immortal at the carefree realm of the sword sect, had become one of the most powerful figures in Howren. When she had learned that Yu Yuan might be in trouble in the Firefly Star Zone, she had ignored the so-called rules of the Forbidden Area and forced her way in. She had originally planned to use her current battle prowess and her Starfrost sword to protect Yu Yuan for a while. But Jining Shuang's lips curled with a trace of bitterness, but more than that, there was a deeply hidden pride and gratification. After all, it was him. After all, he was the man Jining Shuang had fallen in love with. Mo Baichuan, Du Yuan, and Yu Mu were floating above the deep sea, still looking down at the bottom of the sea, as if they were sensing the movement of the mouth of the frigid abyss. They wanted to see if the cold energy of the Firefly Star Zone had flowed through the mouth of the frigid abyss to the 9 serenities of Howren, and whether the heaven-upholding sword was there. Only Jining Shuang didn't seem to care much about the mouth of the frigid abyss. Instead, she raised her head and looked at Yu Yuan. Her beautiful eyes were rippling with extraordinary splendor. Yu Yuan felt something and looked at her. Their eyes met. Thousands of words seemed to have turned into countless invisible flowing lights, flying in the depths of their eyes the moment they looked at each other. Both of them understood each other's thoughts, concerns about the current situation. Yu Yuan sighed inwardly. The current treacherous situation in the Firefly Star Zone prevented them from speaking freely. He represented the Shunhun sect and the Chamber of Commerce, while behind Jining Shuang were the 5 supreme forces of Howren. Currently, both sides were still enemies. There was too much helplessness in his heart, but he could only suppress it. He couldn't abandon everything and go to the side of the beautiful woman. A strong sense of forgetfulness overflowed in his heart. Yu Yuan narrowed his eyes. Just as he was about to reveal a little of his hidden emotions, he suddenly felt a faint crimson light blossom in his eyes. In the Qi and Blood Lesser World, his special Yang spirit trembled slightly. Yu Yuan's spirit suddenly became sharp, as if it could see through the miasma of the world and see the abnormalities in other people's flesh and blood. He saw that in Jining Shuang's living heart, there were golden lightning and silver wires hidden. The golden electricity and silver wires were like an extension of the pseudo-cage. They filled the walls of Jining Shuang's heart and destroyed her fine blood vessels. At the same time, tiny sword auras of star frost slashed at the golden lightning and silver threads in the depths of her heart. However, every time, it would affect Jining Shuang's injuries, rupturing her internal organs and causing the sword energy that she had accumulated with great difficulty to collapse. Yu Yuan's expression darkened slightly. He immediately knew that Jining Shuang had been in a hurry to break out of the pseudo-cage, and thus suffered serious injuries. They hadn't been treated properly and had gradually become a hidden danger. The reason why Alonso suddenly wasn't in a hurry seemed to be because he was certain that Jining Shuang's heart was a vital part, and that it was being continuously damaged by the aftereffects of the pseudo-cage. The Azura race's commander-in-chief firmly believed that with this hidden danger, Jining Shuang's path to becoming a god would be forced to stop. "I can't believe I can see so clearly." Worried and shocked, he turned to look at the Sword of Destruction, Du Yuan. He used the Yang Spirit's soul energy and blood energy to open his enhanced wisdom eye. He could see the minute abnormalities in the flesh and blood of all living beings. He saw that the bones in Du Yuan's body, which weren't made to be tough, were covered in cracks. The sword intent of destruction had settled in the depths of his bones and bones. It had unknowingly injured his internal organs and tendons. Countless thin strands of sword energy of destruction were hidden deep in his body like impurities and dregs that couldn't be refined. Du Yuan looked extraordinarily strong, but his true body was riddled with injuries. Adding to the fact that he didn't pay attention to the tempering of his body, the hidden danger was already very great. No wonder Alonso said that the power he and Shi Quan comprehended was also continuously hurting themselves when he commented on them. Moreover, he and Shi Quan weren't immortal birds and didn't have the divine power to regenerate. The backlash left behind by swinging the sword again and again would cause Shi Quan and Du Yuan to suffer a great loss one day. It's impossible for Du Yuan to break through to the nascent divinity realm. Even if the seat is empty, it's still hopeless for him. Yu Yuan came to the same conclusion as Alonso. The difference was that he had used the extreme wisdom soul tempering art to open his wisdom eye after his Yang spirit was formed. He could only see through it by borrowing the Yang spirit's soul energy and blood energy. After that, he glanced at Yu Mu, the sword of heavenly water, and his old friend Mo Baichuan. To his surprise, Yu Mu and Mo Baichuan didn't have any obvious defects deep in their flesh and blood, nor did they have any hidden injuries or hidden dangers. Yu Mu's meridians flowed with refined spiritual energy of water, forming a heavenly water net with his meridians. In this net, his tendons and meridians were the blood veins that covered his limbs and bones. They constantly nourished his body and grew endlessly. As for Mo Baichuan, Yu Yuan saw that the small world of qi and blood in his middle dantian didn't have any extraordinary blood energy. However, 9 other acupoints in Mo Baichuan's waist and abdomen had been opened by him. Inside them, there seemed to be 9 small worlds of blazing fire. Volcanoes were everywhere, spewing blazing water, forming winding streams of fire. The sky of the 9 small worlds was as deep red as the sea, as if it were burning eternally. What was even more shocking was that the 9 opened acupoints were connected to each other. No wonder the Shenhun sect and the Chamber of Commerce thought that he was the most promising genius of the primal Yang sect to succeed Li Tianxin. Yu Yuan nodded gently. When he was in the land of despair, he had received help from the source of the Yin veins and opened many acupoints with the essence of Yin sunflower. The number of acupoints he had opened was actually more than Mo Baichuan's. However, it was far from being as grand as Mo Baichuan's acupoints. The flame aura in Mo Baichuan's acupoints was not as exuberant. The 9 lights heavenly wheel has formed 9 small worlds of fire in his body. They are independent of each other, but they can also merge into one at any moment. Yu Yuan saw the mysteries within. After breaking through to the Sun God realm, he had opened his wisdom eye. Now, he could see even the smallest details in the body of a Freedom Realm great cultivator. Alonso, I wonder if he's hiding, with this thought, the Sun God that contained the wonders of life in his small world of blood seemed to become another heart of his, helping him sense the blood energy of all living beings. Billions of tiny specks of light that seemed to represent living beings suddenly appeared in his mind. The weak specks of light were not worth mentioning at all. They flashed by. Beside him, Jun Chen, Zhou Yu, White Crane, Tian Zong, Jining Shuang, and the others all turned into large specks of light that represented the strength of each other's blood energy. A golden speck of light suddenly appeared across a river of stars. Alonso. When he looked at the river of stars, the dragon beheading platform under his feet naturally responded. After losing the Dark Realm Cold Well, Alonso, who had escaped with the golden crystal ball and the 4 platinum azuras, immediately appeared in the dragon beheading platform's field of vision. Yu Yuan immediately saw Alonso, Damien, and the others hiding in a huge ice cave. Alonso held the crystal ball with both hands and extracted the drops of golden blood he had spilled from the golden world inside the crystal ball. Every drop of golden blood was the crystallization of his power, which could increase his battle prowess. Shirala, Damien, and the others surrounded him with solemn expressions and were muttering to each other. Damien sat on the blood-boiling war drum and used his silver blood to carve something on the surface of the drum, as if he wanted to ask for help. Without the Dark Realm Cold Well, Shiala's bones were shattered, making him the most miserable of them all. All of a sudden, the barrier of the starry river they were hiding in cracked without a sound. Several bloodline crystal chains in Alonso's golden heart suddenly tightened, causing him to feel stabbing pain in his chest. Since he could subtly sense the barrier of stars ruled by the Azuras, he immediately knew that the barrier had been torn apart, and also knew who the culprit was. Brutal Bear knows where we're hiding. It destroyed the barrier, Alonso said with a bitter expression. A bitter look appeared on Alonso's face as he said, "The entire Firefly domain was given to it long ago. It can use all of the barrier of stars and cold energy with its bloodline. Sigh, I only hate that I couldn't assassinate Yu Yuan and get the dragon beheading platform." Strange vibrations suddenly came from the depths of the earth. The star where Alonso and the others were hiding suddenly seemed to become many times brighter in the dark void. Then, the primal Chaos Koan, which was rampaging through the domain of Firefly and had fallen into a berserk state, suddenly seemed to be attracted by the bright star. It stared at the star for a few moments before roaring and charging towards it. The distance between them seemed to be shortened after it went berserk. Chapter 1368. The primal Chaos Koan's unusual behavior attracted everyone's attention. Its enormous body was flying at high speed in the cold, dark void. It was hard not to notice it. Under the repeated attacks of the heaven-opening sword formation and the 9 slashes of raising heaven, its body, which was full of bloody scars and huge holes, was mostly healed after it smashed through a few small stars due to its frenzied state. Not only did the cracked fish scales reappear, but they also became pitch black and tough. They also shone with a hard, cold luster like divine iron, which made it look even more domineering. Some of the wounds were still exposed. Thick and tough veins were entrenched in his flesh and bones like ferocious pythons. They were filled with explosive energy. Who wouldn't be shocked by such a star behemoth's astonishing self-healing ability? Whoosh! Like a black flood, it traveled billions of kilometers in the blink of an eye. Along its way, many meteors that had shattered due to the explosion of stars were silently reduced to dust as it passed. All Azuras with bloodlines below the 8th grade were reduced to clouds of blood mist with a boom. The berserk primal Chaos Koan was the ultimate disaster of this starry river. Stars, worlds, and all living beings would either explode or die instantly if it came close. One of its eyes was crimson, and the other was silver. Blood was still flowing out of its eyes. The sun and moon that it had refined had split open, and turned into 2 enormous bloody lakes in its eye sockets. Wherever he looked, there were stars and Azuras. Even the laws of heaven and earth, the bloodline crystal chains in the Azuras' bodies, and the flow of their blood, were all affected by his gaze. At this moment, the primal Chaos Kuan was a brutal star behemoth and the most terrifying predator. What is he trying to do? Even White Crane, who was a great demon, wasn't targeted by the primal Chaos Kuan. However, the flow of his blood in his veins was affected and slowed down. If it weren't for the profound truths of death in his bloodline, he had a feeling that his blood power would have been drained by the primal Chaos Kuan. The primal Chaos Kuan, whose bloodline was life, seemed to be able to instinctively gather flesh power from its surroundings and channel it into itself. White Crane smelled the balance that came from the depths of his bloodline, so he was slightly nervous. Why do I feel like, standing on the blood spirit altar, Tian Tsang took a closer look in the direction the Chaos Kuan had flown to. His expression suddenly grew grim as he said, "The realm he's heading for seems to be the highest realm in this domain." Hearing this, Junchun and Zhou Yu suddenly looked at Yu Yuan. After Yu Yuan took a deep breath, he looked at the violent bear in shock. Originally, it looked silly, but now, its bare teeth were protruding from its mouth. A savage and bloodthirsty aura erupted from the depths of its eyes and its chest. It had made a choice after being disappointed in the domain of Firefly and the Azuras. A choice for bloody revenge. The star that had suddenly brightened was Fernand's hometown, where Elena had been born, and where the Azura civilization of the domain of Firefly had gathered. It was similar to the supreme status of the abundant spirit realm in the domain of Dark Forest. In that world, Yu Yuan had just passed through the dragon beheading platform. He had not only seen Alonso and the 4 platinum Azuras hiding there. He had also seen countless interweaving rays of magical laws in the depths of the earth. He had also seen many loads of gold, silver, and refined iron under many towering mountains. Cold mist had filled the depths of the lake. Bright, translucent stones that contained strong frost power could be seen everywhere. He had also seen several Azura kingdoms, where hundreds of thousands of Azuras lived and worked in peace and contentment. He had seen a few of them before the domain of Dark Forest had transformed into the void. They were the Azura warriors who had been rescued by Elena and were loyal to Fernand and Elena. They were the native Azuras of the domain of Firefly. The reason the primal Chaos Kuan had targeted that star was because it contained the most power in the entire domain of Firefly. Moreover, the natural laws at the bottom of that star were connected to many Azura worlds in this star system. If the primal Chaos Kuan destroyed that star and refined it and devoured it, the domain of Firefly would truly die. Wild Bear had made a choice in anger and grief after being hurt by the Azura race. He no longer cared about the survival of the domain of Firefly, the lives of all living beings in this world, and whether Howren could continue to extract frost energy from this world through the mouth of frigid abyss. In its sorrow, it had abandoned this place. Commander! Shirala, Damien, and the 2 platinum Azuras knelt on one knee, their eyes bulging as they stared at Alonso. They had left the ice cave a long time ago, and appeared in an empty ice plain. The icy realm barrier above them had disappeared. In the outer realms, the power of the star sea, which was filled with filthy and chaotic power, was pouring down. Even though Azuras were born strong, their blood would be polluted after losing the protection of the realm barrier if their bloodline hadn't reached rank 7. Shirala and Damien's cries and pleas were because they knew that Alonso was the only one who could rebuild the realm barrier. They knew that this world meant a lot to the domain of Firefly. If it was destroyed, the domain of Firefly would be finished. When Alonso opened his mouth, they found that his voice was rough and hoarse, just like his current state of mind. The barrier is gone because of Wild Bear. It's the one who responded after being angered by us. Alonso sighed deeply. He could already hear the cries and prayers of many Azuras with high bloodlines in the nearby Azura kingdom after sensing the disappearance of the realm barrier. They called out Saboni's name and begged for help, hoping that the Shura of Gojoseon would hear them. With the disappearance of the realm barrier, 99% of the weak Asuras had either died or become mutated. The empire would collapse in an instant and their civilization would come to an end. How could it do this? Shirala muttered to himself in a daze. We were the ones who heard it first. We may have forgotten how cruel and vicious it is in the eyes of other races. Because it treats us so well, we overlook its cruel side and forget its nature. Damien looked up at the cold space. His pupils suddenly shrank, and he shouted as if his soul was collapsing, "The Chaos Kuan! The Chaos Kuan is here!" The 3 platinum Asuras also looked towards the sky because of his shout. Earlier, they hadn't noticed the Chaos Kuan because it was too far away. At this moment, because the distance was reduced, they could also see the berserk Chaos Kuan like Alonso. Then, they found that they had all become the Chaos Kuan's hunting targets, just like this star. You? The 4 of them looked at Alonso again. I'm no match for the Chaos Kuan when it's not in a berserk state, let alone now. Alonso shook his head and sighed helplessly. I was injured by the divine sword, the tip of the spear exploded, and the Dark Realm cold well exploded. I can't communicate with the Dark Realm. Facing a berserk Chaos Kuan, I don't have any hope at all. Whoosh! Holding the crystal ball, he floated in the sky of this star and looked in the direction of the dragon beheading platform. He was looking at Violent Bear. He lowered his head in the sky, bowed deeply, and transmitted his thoughts and consciousness through the crystal ball in his hand. He knew that the Violent Bear could hear him and understand his request. He asked for forgiveness. Even Yu Yuan, Jun Chen, and the others noticed his behavior. In an instant, the 2 of them understood what the Azura tribe's supreme commander wanted. Alonso was asking Violent Bear to continue to favor the Azura race and lead the Chaos Kuan elsewhere for the sake of their old friendship. Yu Yuan. Standing in the ICC, Du Yuan called out softly. At this moment, Mo Baichuan, Yu Mu, and Jining Shuang also looked at Yu Yuan. The difference was that their eyes were full of hope, as if they were hoping that Yu Yuan would say something to Violent Bear and change the situation. They hoped that the most important star in the Firefly starfield could get rid of the disaster of destruction. They all felt that once that star was destroyed by the Chaos Kuan, it would cause a chain reaction, and the entire Firefly starfield would die. If the Firefly starfield was gone, the abundant cold energy in this starfield would naturally flow to other places. In that case, even if the mouth of the frigid abyss existed, what was the point? Because of this, the Howran Great World would lose a stable mouth of the frigid abyss forever. Howran would have to choose a new starfield and build another mouth of the frigid abyss. Jun Chen, Zhou Yu, and the others also looked over, their faces full of expectation. However, Yu Yuan shook his head slightly. Chapter 1369. Shaking his head was a sign of refusal. Facing the expectant gazes of Du Yuan, Mo Baichuan, Yu Mu, Jun Chen, Zhou Yu, and the others, who all came from the vast great world but were from different camps, Yu Yuan shook her head and refused. He refused because the snow bear that had been injured by the Azura race hadn't lost its mind. Even though its eyes were filled with dense killing intent and ruthlessness, its intelligence was still there, it was awake, and it knew what it was doing. That was its choice. It had protected the Azura race for many years, helped the Azura race's kings reach the top, and silently protected the Firefly Star Zone. It was also it that had brought the cold crystals from the mouth of the frigid abyss for Sabonis to forge the Dark Domain Cold Well. It had an ancient contract with the Azura race, and it had always abided by it. It had done everything it could do. It was Sabonis, Alonso, and the entire Azura race that had broken the contract first. They even dared to imprison it with the pure fall cage. Since that was the case, why should it care about the Azura race's survival? What did it have to do with whether the Howran Great World could extract cold energy from the Firefly Star Zone through the mouth of the frigid abyss? Its eyes were fierce and determined. Its attitude was so clear. Yu Yuan could feel that it had made such a bloody choice because of its anger at being betrayed. The only thing Yu Yuan could do was respect its choice. Roar. The violent bear suddenly beat its chest and roared. This seemed to be a clear signal, a clear answer. In the distance, Alonso, who was floating in the sky of that star, had a gloomy and disappointed expression. He held the crystal ball and sighed deeply. He could see that some warriors with high bloodlines in the Azura race's kingdom in this world were looking at him excitedly. Many people even knelt down and prostrated themselves before him, constantly kowtowing. They seemed to know that he was the Azura race's general, a rank 10 golden Azura, and had come to save them. They thought that Sabonis had heard their prayers and arranged for him to come. He was the one who repaired the torn realm barrier so that the empire below could be complete and the living beings could survive. Unfortunately, Alonso's heart was filled with guilt and sadness. After another sigh, he tossed the crystal ball he was holding. A golden curtain fell from the sky and covered Shia, the platinum Azuras, and some of the rank 8 Azuras below, pulling them into the crystal ball. "I'm sorry," Alonso and the crystal ball left together. The Chaos Kuan gradually approached the star that had a special connection to the entire domain of Firefly. He abandoned us. He is Alonso, the great commander of our race. He is a rank 10 golden Azura. Why did he abandon us? Countless despairing wails came from the Azura kingdoms. The weak Azura clansmen could no longer see any hope. They could already feel that the air that entered their lungs contained the tainted energy that could crush their hearts. Then, they saw a huge black object that filled their vision. It also filled the starry sky above their head. A bestial roar resounded throughout the world, and countless clouds of blood exploded. The ferocious and cruel aura inside the wild bear suddenly calmed down, and it withdrew its gaze with an indifferent expression. It calmly looked at the deep sea that Mo Baichuan and the others were secretly guarding. A hint of human mockery appeared in its eyes, as if it was mocking Mo Baichuan, Du Yuan, Yu Mu, and the others. The domain of Firefly was about to be destroyed. What was the point of guarding the mouth of the frigid abyss? Boom! 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 Jining Shuang suddenly found that the earth under the snow mountain she was sitting on was rumbling. In the depths of the earth's core, the Tao laws that were closely related to the domain of Firefly and the star that was destroyed by the Chaos Kuan had begun to collapse. No matter how magical the mouth of the frigid abyss was, the thick cold mist no longer flowed over. Originally, this peculiar star had been like a cold stone that contained a profound spell formation, which had been able to gather thick, frigid mist towards the cold starry river outside of it for eternity. Now, because of the collapse of its core laws, this strange characteristic no longer existed. Zhou Yu's face was full of worry. How did it become like this? Tian Tsang let out a cold harumph. It's Alonso's own trap. You can't blame it. What an arrogant guy. He and Sabonis brought the destruction of the domain of Firefly on themselves. We could have worked together to restrain the Chaos Kuan and stop it from causing trouble, but he insisted on stabbing it with his spear. Tian Tsang was a foreign heavenly devil, not a native of Hauran. Therefore, he could ignore the significance of the mouth of the frigid abyss. He calmly looked at this matter, and knew that the key to the problem was that when Yu Yuan was doing his best to operate the heaven-opening sword formation to restrain the Chaos Kuan, Alonso had taken the opportunity to stab him with his spear. It was very inappropriate and unreasonable for Alonso to stab Yu Yuan with his spear at that time. However, he had received Sabonis's instructions. When Wild Bear tried to stop him in anger, he actually used the elemental earth cage that was used to kill giant dragons, causing Wild Bear to fall into it and even injure his bloodline. The Azuras should pay the price in blood for this. But what should we do now? The Chaos Kuan might be able to recover most of its injuries through that most important star. The White Crane's bloodline was trembling. He could sense the great terror that the star behemoth was exuding. He felt as if he was enduring the impact of blood power at all times. The more powerful a demon was, the more uncomfortable it would feel when facing the Chaos Koan in its berserk state. He hasn't woken up yet. What's there to be afraid of? Yu Yuan frowned and turned to look at the white crane. Besides, when he wakes up, his first target will be me. The death crane was slightly displeased. If it had been before, he might have exploded on the spot and taught Yu Yuan a lesson. However, even though there was displeasure in his heart, he had no choice but to suppress it. After all, Yu Yuan had displayed unimaginable power and strength through the upheaval in the domain of Firefly. Yu Yuan, who was able to successfully deliver that sword strike with the help of the heaven-raising sword, control the dragon beheading platform, and make Violent Bear obedient, was already above him. Yu Yuan's status in the Shinhun sect and the Chamber of Commerce was almost equal to Jun Qin's. The White Crane was not stupid. Once he realized that Yu Yuan, after breaking through to the Sun God realm, was stronger than him in terms of personal combat ability and influence, he certainly did not dare to make trouble. Don't worry about the Chaos Koan. Keep an eye on Alonso. For the dragon beheading platform that I control, this guy even dared to sacrifice the domain of Firefly. In that case, let's do as he wishes. Yu Yuan's face was indifferent, and his state of mind was surprisingly cold. His mood was not affected by the death of hundreds of thousands of Asuras. His apologetic feelings toward Elena disappeared without a trace the moment he shook his head. Shi Quan was dead, Jining Shuang was seriously injured by Alonso, and he was almost beaten up by Xiala. Even the wild bear, who had taken care of Asuras for countless years, was injured by the plane falling cage. Why shouldn't Asuras pay the price? We'll choose the starry sky where the mouth of the cold abyss is located in the future. Now, let's try to kill Alonso, Yu Yuan said arrogantly. However, no one thought there was anything wrong with his words. Alonso was also seriously injured. The plane falling cage was destroyed, the tip of the silver spear exploded, and the crystal ball was damaged. In such a state, Alonso was no longer at his best. If everyone present worked together, plus the wild bear and Yu Yuan's many trump cards, it was really possible to kill Alonso. Crack! The snowy peak under Jining Shuang suddenly cracked like a popsicle that had been hit by a hammer. Not only the snowy peak, but the realm barrier of the icy planet hidden in the mouth of the cold abyss was also torn apart. The earth was also falling apart with the sound of shaking. Mo Baichuan and the others looked at the sea that was constantly being smashed by glaciers and snowy peaks, frowning. Zlotsla! Numerous interweaving spatial blades appeared under the planet. Some kind of strange power seemed to be overflowing from the mouth of the cold abyss in the deep sea. Naturally, it attracted everyone's attention. Junchen, Zhouyu, and White Crane all looked very serious. Obviously, they were very concerned. The mouth of the cold abyss was the key to Haoran's stability. They all came from Haoyang. They never wanted to see anything happen to Haoyang. They never wanted to see Haoyang in trouble. I'm afraid we can't count on the Firefly domain. Du Yuan dragged his tired body and stepped on a thick piece of ice. With a deep look in his eyes, he said, I'll go to the bottom of the sea and see if I can protect the mouth of the cold abyss and take it somewhere else. As soon as he said this, he was the first to sink into the sea. Chapter 1370. I'll go take a look too. Mo Baichuan sighed with a heavy expression and was about to go into the sea as well. Heavenly Water Sword. Yumu panicked and hurried to stop him. Don't, Mr. Mo. Mo Baichuan looked at him in confusion. The flame power in your body is too strong. I think you'd better not dive into the sea and get close to the mouth of the frigid abyss. At this time, Yumu was very frank and didn't mince his words. I'm worried that the great Tao of primordial yang you've comprehended will directly destroy the fragile laws of ice and accelerate the collapse of this world. Mo Baichuan hesitated for a moment, then nodded slightly and said, "Then I won't go down." Mr. Zhou, Jun Chun of the Tongtian Trading Company, had been paying attention to the changes of the icy star. He pondered and said, "We can all predict that the Firefly domain will inevitably become a dead one. You've comprehended the power of space, and you know how difficult it is to build the mouth of the frigid abyss." Zhou Yu said, "I understand." Back then, the formation of the mouth of the frigid abyss was assisted by the spacetime dragon and the frost dragon. The later maintenance of the mouth of the frigid abyss was in charge of that divine king Extreme Hui of the Shenhun sect. Jun Chen obviously knew the details. In the current era, we Howren haven't produced a nascent divinity realm expert of space. Zhou Yu nodded with a bitter smile. Yu Yuan listened to them. Seeing Jun Chen's grave expression, Mo Baichuan, Yu Mu, and Jining Shuang also worried, he immediately guessed the reason. Because there were no nascent divinity realm experts of space in Howren today, it was difficult to build a new mouth of the frigid abyss. That was, they had to ensure that the mouth of the frigid abyss below wouldn't be seriously damaged, and they had to take it away. Howren couldn't lose this mouth of the frigid abyss. "I know what you want to say." With a bitter expression, Zhou Yu placed the horsetail whisk on his crossed arms. He stared at the sea and seemed to see Du Yuan's figure. "I'll give it a try. But let me tell you the truth. I'm not confident at all." Jun Chen said seriously, "Try to protect the mouth of the frigid abyss. I can only do my best." With a whoosh, this great cultivator, who was already outstanding in space attainments in the Howren Great World, appeared beside Mo Baichuan and Yu Mu. Mo Baichuan and Yu Mu, who were in different camps, didn't make a big fuss this time. They didn't have any malicious intent. Yu Mu said solemnly, "Thank you for your trouble." Mo Baichuan didn't say anything, just nodded. They obviously knew that they were all from Howren, and no one wanted to see the Howren world fall into a predicament one day after losing the mouth of the frigid abyss. Howren was the foundation of the 5 supreme forces, and it was also the foundation of the Shenhun sect and the Chamber of Commerce. If Zhou Yu stood on a piece of thin ice floating on the surface of the sea. Suddenly, he raised his head and looked at Yu Yuan, who was standing on the dragon beheading platform. His expression and behavior also attracted the gazes of the others, who all turned to look at him. "If neither I nor Du Yuan can do it, it's your turn to try." Zhou Yu sounded very serious. He didn't seem to be joking at all. Yu Yuan went blank for a moment. "I know you want to say that you don't practice spatial incantations or magics," Zhou Yu said. "But you're in charge of the dragon beheading platform, and the space dragon and the frost dragon inside it are the key to the creation of the mouth of the frigid abyss. The mouth of the frigid abyss contains the dragon aura of those 2 dragon gods. Also, the refinement of your yang spirit carries traces of the divine incantations of the divine king of wisdom. I'll try my best to protect the mouth of the frigid abyss and take it out of the domain of Firefly as soon as possible. But if I can't do it, I hope you'd better be prepared." Standing on a piece of thin ice, Zhou Yu suddenly sank into the depths of the sea. "Why do I have to take on so much?" Standing on the dragon beheading platform, Yu Yuan sensed the stars in the domain of Firefly shattering one after another in the cold, dark void. With the help of the dragon beheading platform, he could see many flat ancient starships of the Azura race sailing between many realms, taking in talented or high-grade clansmen. However, this was nothing but a drop in the bucket. Only a small number of Azuras could be saved. Most of the Azuras would die with the Firefly star zone. Due to the primal Chaos Kuan's rampage and Alonso's inability to stop it, the fate of this universe was already sealed. He had been brought here by the frigid snow bear to refine his yang spirit. At most, he would use the scabbard to gather sword energy from the river of sword light. He had done almost everything he could and should have done. He had restrained the primal chaos Kuan with the heaven-opening sword formation. He had also torn apart the dark seal, broken Alonso's fatal spear strike, and helped the frigid snow bear break the primal landing cage. After the divine sword had returned to the Howran realm, he had returned to the domain of Firefly. Now, Zhou Yu was going to transfer the responsibility of excavating the mouth of the frigid abyss to him. Even Yu Yuan felt that she had worked too hard and performed too many meritorious deeds. She felt that she had overworked herself and shouldered too much responsibility. After all, the primal Chaos Koan was still there, and could wake up at any time. Alonso didn't even care about the destruction of the domain of Firefly or the ancient contract between the Azuras and the frigid snow bear. He only wanted to seize the dragon beheading platform. He wanted to get the baby Titanspinosaurus. Please. Suddenly, Jining Shuang, who had left the snowy mountain peak, turned into a streak of bright silver sword light and floated quietly not far from him. She said this in a cold voice to him, who was full of complaints. Jining Shuang's beautiful eyes glittered as the corners of her mouth curled up into a faint smile. Just this one please instantly swept away all of the haze in Yu Yuan's heart, and all of his displeasure and unhappiness vanished in an instant. Yu Yuan smiled brightly and said heroically, "If Zhou Yu, an old monster, can't do it, then let me try." Jun Chen and White Crane looked at him as if he had suddenly become a different person, and their eyes became strange. Mo Baichuan rolled his eyes on the icy star, as if he was used to it and knew it must be like this. 300 years ago, whenever Jining Shuang begged him for something, he would force himself to take it, even if he couldn't do it. Now, he was still the same. Crack, crack, crack. The icy world was collapsing faster. Du Yuan and Zhou Yu's figures could no longer be seen under the sea. After laughing heartily, Yu Yuan looked at Jining Shuang, who was standing not far away. With a thought, the dragon beheading platform moved closer to her. "I have something for you." The beautiful woman in white, as cold as ice, had a happy expression on her face. However, when she thought of the two sides and their positions, she subconsciously looked at Mo Baichuan and Yu Mu. The two of them, immediately, she looked seriously and attentively at the deep sea where the mouth of the frigid abyss was hidden, as if she could see clearly that Zhou Yu and Du Yuan had already taken action. Jining Shuang was stunned. She looked at Jun Chen and Tian Song, wondering if Yu Yuan's reckless action would bring him trouble. Then, she found that whether it was Jun Chen, Tian Song, or White Crane, who had been chased by her, not only did they not intend to stop him, but their eyes also suddenly lit up. Jun Chen and Tian Song seemed to be encouraging Yu Yuan, and encouraging Yu Yuan to do it. "This little girl chased me all the way to the great lake of the desolate god in Howran," White Crane whispered, his small gray eyes shining with a strange, evil light. "If she is captured by Yu Yuan and taken to the Shunhun sect, there will be a lot of fun to watch. At worst, the Sword sect will suspect her and punish her. It will be revenge for me." His voice was so low that only Jun Chen and Tian Song could hear him clearly. "Taisher values her very much," Tian Song said softly. "If she can stand on our side, the Shunhun sect is even willing to get a supreme position for her." Jun Chen looked shocked. "Don't worry. You and President Li won't escape the 2 seats in the Chamber of Commerce." Tian Song was afraid that he would think too much, so he hurriedly added, "The War of Gods in Howran will last for a very long time, and it will be extremely cruel and fierce. Li Tianxin will not be the only one whose soul has perished. Also, the number of supreme positions in Howran may increase in the future." Jun Chen nodded slowly in silence. These cold crystals came from the well under the sea. Chapter 1371. As the magical laws of heaven and earth collapsed and the world was about to be destroyed, Yu Yuan approached Ji Ningxuang with a handful of translucent cold crystals. Boom! Rumble! The heaven and earth under the sea where Zhou Yu and Du Yuan had just sunk continued to shake violently. On the other side of the starry river, the primal chaos Kuan had smashed the most intelligent star in the starry river. At this moment, he was using his core talent as a star behemoth to gather all kinds of magical powers from the star to heal his injuries. All of the Azuras that Alonso hadn't taken away had died. After they exploded, they turned into clouds of blood mist that mixed with the star power and were absorbed by the primal chaos Kuan as if they were water. A few nearby cold stars were wreathed in silver lightning. Their realm barriers were also cracking. Desperate wails could be heard everywhere. The Starry River and the Starry River were both being destroyed. However, none of this seemed to be able to affect Yu Yuan's Dao heart or shake his emotions. With a bright smile, he stood in front of Ji Ningxuang after 300 years. He had been looking forward to this moment since his resurrection. He had been waiting for this moment for far too long. He presented one bright cold crystal after another to Ji Ningxuang, as if it were a gift for her. Like tiny stars, the cold crystals glittered as they flew towards Ji Ningxuang. I haven't seen you for many years. You've grown even more beautiful, but you're even colder than before. Yu Yuan's eyes were burning with excitement. He couldn't hide the smile at the corner of his mouth. Back in the great lake of desolate God I was almost. Don't be angry. I know you didn't know who I was back then. Seeing the beauty glare at him, Yu Yuan hurriedly stopped himself. Whoosh! Ji Ningxuang flicked her sleeve, as if she didn't like the cold crystals that blocked her view. One bright cold crystal after another flew into her sleeve like swallows returning to their nest. Given her current cultivation base and status in the sword sect, what kind of rare treasures had she not seen? In the vast world and the boundless starry sky, the sword sect would do everything in its power to get what she, Ji Ningxuang, wanted and needed. It was because she was the sword sect's most important trump card beneath the two nascent divinities. From the moment she stepped into the Mahasvara state, from the moment she mastered the Sword of Starfrost, she was the most famous great sword immortal in Howran and even in the vast galaxy. For the past 100 years, she had hunted down and killed countless evil cultivators in the name of sharpening her swordsmanship. The White Crane was only one of them. After Nye Qingtian, she might be the next great sword immortal of the sword sect who was famous for her ruthlessness. She was addicted to battle. Her Starfrost sword was forged from the bones of many powerful alien experts. She made the alien heretics of Howran who were like white cranes tremble in fear upon hearing her name. She was the glory of the sword sect. She was the cold and arrogant Starfrost sword. But at this moment, when she put the frost crystals into her sleeves, her fair and slender hand also shrank into her sleeves. In the sleeves where no one could see, she rubbed the frost crystals with her jade-like fingers, and a smile appeared at the corner of her eyes. Of course, what she cared about was not these frost crystals, nor was it because these frost crystals would be of great help to her cultivation. After all, when she broke through to the Mahasvara state, her Dharma idol had been forged with these frost crystals as the foundation. The sword sect had already prepared everything for her. What she really cared about was that these frost crystals were given to her by Yu Yuan, and it was Yu Yuan's attitude towards her. She couldn't contain her joy because the coward from back then, who had always been timid and cowardly when it came to relationships, had finally become bold after 300 years. Because of this, she felt that it was worth it to go all the way from the domain of Dark Forest to the domain of Firefly and take the risk of being condemned by the 5 supreme forces to see Yu Yuan and save Yu Yuan. That was why she had been playing with those cold crystals in secret, unable to put them down. Her eyes, the corners of her eyes, and the corners of her mouth were filled with obvious joy. However, she still kept a straight face and pretended to be indifferent. Aren't they just frost soul frost crystals that took hundreds of years to form at the mouth of the frigid depths? The frost crystals you've given me are the best of the frost soul frost crystals, but they're not that rare. Even though she said that, she couldn't help but like those frost crystals very much. She didn't even want to refine those frost crystals and fuse them with her star frost sword. She only wanted to take them out to have a look and touch when she missed someone and couldn't find him. Your injuries. Yu Yuan, who had intended to say some heartwarming words, noticed that there were tiny golden lightning bolts and silver wires in her chest as soon as he opened his mouth. Knowing that they were the residual power of the essence landing cage, Yu Yuan's heart ached as he said, "Those injuries will hinder your breakthrough in the peak of nascent divinity. Alonso, this bastard, is full of evil intentions. He really deserves to be killed." Jining Shuang rolled her eyes at him, as if she was complaining that he didn't know how to talk. After so many years, they had finally reunited, and at such a special moment. Why did he have to mention these things? Didn't she know how serious her injuries were? If it weren't for you, why would I have tried to break the essence landing cage before I refined that starfrost sword light? Wasn't it because of you? Jining Shuang thought angrily. Yu Yuan said with a serious expression, "I think I can help you get rid of your injuries so that you won't have any future troubles." Most of the time, men and women had very different ideas. After Yu Yuan approached her, he put aside his feelings and thought about how to cure her injuries, how to help her recover her combat ability, and how to prevent it from affecting her breakthrough into the nascent divinity realm and becoming the supreme leader of Howren. She, however, was different. Now that they had finally reunited, she didn't care about her injuries at all. She didn't care about whether or not she could break into the nascent divinity realm in the future. She just wanted to hear more from Yu Yuan about how much he had missed her in the past 300 years. Everything else was not as moving as these words, nor was it as important as these words. Idiot! She frowned and couldn't help but curse in a low voice. In the void, the fierce bear was shrouded in sorrow, as if it was sad that the Firefly domain was about to be destroyed. Looking down at Yu Yuan and listening to the conversation between Yu Yuan and Jining Shuang, it seemed to be immersed in the memories of a long time ago. Something stirred in its heart, and it exclaimed in a low voice. After it exclaimed in a low voice, a thick, white, cold mist rushed towards Yu Yuan and enveloped him and Jining Shuang. The cold mist had originally surrounded the long river of sword light. It had been in the ice world where the mouth of the frigid abyss was located, and it had been destroyed by the primal chaos Kuan. The cold mist was closely related to it. It contained a mysterious power and had many wondrous uses. But now, because the Firefly domain was about to become a thing of the past, the cold mist had become less important. It activated its bloodline power and enveloped Yu Yuan and Jining Shuang with the cold mist. In fact, it was because of Yu Yuan's words. Yu Yuan said that he wanted to help Jining Shuang solve the thorny problem in her heart. Just like Yu Yuan, it was a simple-minded person. It only did things for the sake of solving problems. However, the envelopment of the cold mist also covered Yu Yuan and Jining Shuang, and they couldn't be seen by Junchen, the White Crane, Missouri Baichuan, and Yu Mu. Its cold mist blocked everyone's perception and sight, creating conditions for the two of them to be alone. Yu Yuan and Jining Shuang could only see and feel each other in the depths of the white, cold mist. Jining Shuang, who was pretending to be indifferent, suddenly felt relieved and released because of its kindness. She didn't have to forcibly suppress her feelings anymore. Whoosh! Without hesitation, she threw herself into Yu Yuan's arms. Before Yu Yuan could react, he felt a cool, slender body squeeze into his chest. Jining Shuang's jade-like arms wrapped around him like a snake. She used all her strength to hug him tightly. She was so strong that he found it difficult to breathe, and almost broke his bones. It's been more than 300 years. It's been more than 300 years. I feel like you've always been by my side. I didn't dare to think about it. I didn't dare to think about it. Do you know that I once studied the reincarnation pill in private? I thought about all the possibilities. I knew that you would still be here. I believed that one day you would appear and stand in front of me again. You are the meaning of my sword practice. You are the meaning of my existence. Jining Shuang murmured in a low voice, as if she were dreaming. Yu Yuan didn't hesitate anymore. He didn't avoid her like before. The moment he realized what was going on, he hugged her. Thank you for your hard work. Chapter 1372. At the edge of the domain of fireflies, a flat starship carrying a large number of Azura warriors was sailing towards a nearby barren starry river. Alonso, who was holding a crystal ball, stood tall on the deck at the back of the starship. Behind him were Shiala, Damien, and 2 platinum Azuras. Further away, the 8th grade Azuras he had rescued and the original Azura warriors on the starship were all kneeling on the ground. Their eyes were bloodshot, as if the flames of revenge were burning in them. They wanted to follow him back. Let's go. With his back to the crowd, Alonso waved his hand, his voice filled with exhaustion. Why, my lord? Why should we leave? An elegant woman who was born in a local noble family put her hands on the corner of her silver dress and looked over. My child is dead, my home is gone, and the efforts of our generations have been destroyed. Don't we Azuras always pay with blood? Alonso didn't turn around to look at her. He said coldly, We have to survive first. The woman was about to say something, but Shiala glared at her and said, Shut up. Facing the fiendish Shiala, she forcefully swallowed her grievances and didn't dare to open her mouth again. Damien had already put away the blood-boiling war drum. This platinum Azura from the Dark Realm had already regained his composure and said, I know you're right, my Lord Commander. It wasn't that Alonso couldn't repair the realm barrier on that starry river, but what was the point? The primal Chaos Kuan was already here. Given that wild star behemoth's strength, the realm barrier wouldn't be able to stop it. The reason why the realm barrier had been torn apart by the tyrannical bear was to make that starry river brighter and attract the primal Chaos Kuan's attention. The moment he had seen that starry river, the outcome had been decided. Alonso had repaired the realm barrier, but he couldn't stop the primal Chaos Kuan. Since that was the case, he might as well take some of the late 10th grade Azuras with him and leave as soon as possible. Damien knew that Alonso had done the right thing. What he couldn't understand was why Alonso had chosen to launch a surprise attack on Yu Yuan at such a sensitive time after his secret meeting with Sabonis. Because of this, he had completely offended Violent Bear and chilled Violent Bear's heart. Commander-in-Chief, what did you see in the dragon beheading platform controlled by Yu Yuan? What do the things inside mean to us Azuras? Damien asked. Shirala and the others also looked over abruptly. The reason why the situation had developed to such an unsalvageable stage was because of Alonso's spear. They, too, wanted to know the reason. The future. Alonso's tone was deep, and his expression was firm without a trace of regret. The things in the dragon beheading platform represent the future. If we can get our hands on it, the future of the Azura race will be completely different. Perhaps the Azura race will have a chance to become a supreme race in the outer realm like the heavenly devils. Damien and the others were greatly shaken. They didn't doubt the authenticity of his words at all. They knew that something that could make Sabonis and Alonso make such an important decision must be extraordinary. The 4 of you, come back with me. Alonso held the silver spear that had lost its tip and reignited his fighting spirit. We have to think of a way to awaken the Chaos Kuan's mind and let this astral beast's fangs face the guests of Howran again. The heaven-opening sword formation has disappeared, and so has the divine sword. Once the Chaos Kuan wakes up, no one will be its match. It only wants Yu Yuan's body. We want the dragon beheading platform. Howren Great World, Sword Sect. The desolate and lonely mountains stood straight like swords, emanating numerous sharp sword intents. Between the mountains there was a wide canyon, and there were many holes in the canyon. This was the Sword Cavern. According to legend, the holes in the Sword Cavern were where the deceased buried their sword. After the brilliant sword immortals died in battle, their immortal swords and the mysteries of the sword Tao they had comprehended were buried in those holes for future generations to admire and comprehend. For tens of thousands of years, countless descendants of the Sword Sect had comprehended miraculous sword Tao techniques from the Sword Cavern. At this moment, at the peak of the mountain next to the Sword Cavern, in the caves in the mountain, and at the foot of the mountain, hundreds of disciples of the Sword Sect of different realms appeared. At the peak of the mountain, there was the Seven Emotions sword Lu Hongping, the Blue Flower sword Su Qingma, and the Shattering sword Fan Heching. At the foot of the mountain, there was Kong Banbai, who had cultivated to the middle stage Soul Wander realm. The previous sword rain sprinkled endless sword light and sword intent into the many sword caverns, causing many of the sword arts buried in the sword cavern to suddenly shine brightly. Sword energy gushed out from the ground, chiseling new sword caverns and carving sword marks into them. It was because of the abnormality of the sword cavern that many sword immortals in the Sword Sect and Howren were alarmed, causing them to gather here and whisper to each other. "Senior brother Kong, do you know what happened?" A girl with braids, who looked to be only 17 or 18 years old, came to Kong Banbai's side and asked quietly. Kong Banbai shook his head and said, "I only know that the power that entered the sword cavern came from the 9 frozen abyss." As he spoke, he looked into the distance, towards a mountain that was relatively far away from the sword cavern. The mountain was very short, but very thick, as if it was firmly rooted in the earth, giving off a heavy and deep feeling. Kong Banbai knew very well that it was the place where the Sword of the Earth, Gu Xingkue, cultivated all year round. Not long ago, the short mountain shook slightly, attracting everyone's attention. Then, sword light sprinkled down like rain. "I hope it's nothing major." Kong Banbai had a worried expression. In the new generation of the Sword Sect, he had always been known for his calmness. He was one of the lucky few who had been received and taught by Gu Xingkue. Because of this, he knew that the shaking of the short mountain meant that Gu Xingkue had drawn his sword. Gu Xingkue had drawn his sword to protect Howren, which meant that there was a power from beyond the heavens trying to infiltrate the Howren Great World, thus alarming him and causing the Sword of the Earth to hum. However, since he had drawn his sword, why were there so many sword lights and sword intents at the bottom of the 9 frozen abyss? If the ancestors of the Sword Sect wanted to return to the Sword Sect, shouldn't he welcome them with open arms? Kong Banbai could not understand. In the depths of his heart, he vaguely felt that something was wrong. He felt that some great change had occurred in the Howren Great World, but because his level was not high enough and he had not condensed the Sun Spirit, he did not have the qualifications to know. So many years have passed. I wonder how that kid Yu Yuan is doing in the heavens beyond the heavens. For some reason, Kong Banbai thought of Yu Yuan and the days when the two of them fought side by side in the Stardust Sea region. In his previous life, because he knew that his lifespan was limited and that he did not have long to live, Yu Yuan had always been running away. After being reborn, he no longer ran away. Hugging a beauty in the depths of the white fog, Yu Yuan felt very satisfied. It was as if the treasure he had yearned for in his dreams was finally in his hands, and he had finally gotten what he wanted. The moment he hugged Ji Ningxuang tightly, he faced his heart and immediately knew that in his previous life, he had long since been moved by this cold woman. Sometimes, the more he suppressed it, the thicker and mellower his feelings would become. "How dare you do it now?" Ji Ningxuang, who was hugging him, enjoyed it for a long time and whispered in his ear. Her voice was light and pleasant, and it was indescribably bright and happy. 300 years ago, Jining Shuang could not remember how many times she had confided in him openly and secretly. But that hateful guy either pretended not to understand or pretended not to hear. Because of this, she gritted her teeth in hatred and did not know how many times she had cursed Yu Yuan behind his back. Twice, she boldly took the initiative to throw herself into his arms, but it scared Yu Yuan so much that he fled. This made her very sad and disappointed. After a while of self-pity, she began to doubt herself. She doubted her judgment, suspected that she was imagining things, and suspected that Yu Yuan had never liked her. She suspected that, as Yu Yuan had said, he only treated her as a sister, and at this moment, the moment she rushed into Yu Yuan's arms, Yu Yuan immediately reacted and moved. She immediately knew that everything was different. Yu Yuan had changed. "Tell me, why do you dare to do it?" Yu Yuan was silent for a moment and said, "Because I won't die soon." As soon as he said this, he immediately felt the beauty in his arms tremble slightly and hug him even tighter. Jining Shuang buried her head in his neck and rested her chin on his neck as she asked softly, "In this life, you're not hiding anymore?" "Not hiding anymore." Chapter 1373. In the depths of the thick cold fog, the two of them confided in each other and hugged each other tightly. Countless words and the feelings that had been suppressed in the bottom of their hearts were finally vented. The destruction of the world outside, the chaos of war, and the disputes were temporarily put behind them. The people and demons in the Firefly Star area could not see what the two of them were doing through the miasma of the cold fog, hear their words, or sense their auras. Only the fierce bear could see their figures in the void. "Woo!" It let out another low roar discontentedly. This low roar seemed to enlighten Yu Yuan and Jining Shuang, which suddenly woke them up. "That guy is urging you to refine the superpower in the cold fog and heal the wound in your heart." With a strange smile, Yu Yuan slightly pushed the beauty in his chest away and glanced at her heart. "It made the cold fog because it heard our conversation and wants to help you heal." Reluctantly, Jining Shuang left Yu Yuan's arms. There seemed to be a light mist lingering in her clear eyes. At this moment, she looked more dreamy and otherworldly. She was no longer so superior and cold. Looking at her in front of him, Yu Yuan could not help but think of Princess Qing Luan. In some aspects the two of them were somewhat similar, but they were fundamentally different. Jining Shuang was cold, while Chen Qinghuang was indifferent. Chen Qinghuang's indifference was that she ignored all the creatures in the world, as if all creatures, regardless of whether they were men or women, should crawl at her feet and worship her. She regarded herself as a god, which was a deep-rooted sense of superiority. She looked at all living beings as if they were ants. Although Jining Shuang in front of him was also cold and arrogant, she wanted to keep people thousands of miles away. She was devoted to practicing swordsmanship, and her heart belonged to someone else. She could also be undistracted. Except for the Tao of the sword and her own feelings, she seemed to be uninterested in everything else in the world. She didn't seem to care about the fights within the sect, the deceit of the world, taking in disciples and teaching disciples. Not to mention the so-called love between a man and a woman. However, it was precisely because of her emotions that she had boldly revealed her inner thoughts. He was as proactive as he was in the past. "You are thinking about other women," Jining Shuang coldly shouted. The scabbard of the Star Frost sword on her back suddenly froze. Frost flowers bloomed one after another, as if they were the refinement of the sword aura. Yu Yuan was shocked and hurriedly said, "No!" "Yes, there is." Pointing at the sword on her back, she looked at it with a penetrating gaze. "My sword has a clear mind and can capture the smallest details. It can feel that you were thinking about someone else for a short while." Yu Yuan subconsciously looked at the Star Frost sword, thinking that in the past, this immortal sword didn't seem to be so wonderful. "Who is it?" Yuan Lianyao of the Red Devil School? Jining Shuang asked again. That violent bear reminded me and you that we can heal the wound in the heart through the cold fog here. Yu Yuan forcibly changed the topic with a serious expression. Alonso is still here, and the Chaos Koan is about to recover. You have to recover your strength as quickly as possible. I still need to rely on you. You've become bolder, but not just a little. Jining Shuang pursed her lips and snorted, as if she was still the young girl from back then. She was a great sword immortal in the carefree realm. Even though her seniority in the sword sect was extremely high, she had lived for 300 years. However, she had a technique to retain her youthfulness forever, and she still looked like a young girl who didn't know anything about the world. This was especially true after she opened her heart and faced Yu Yuan again. This made her seem to return to the time when she was a young girl, back to 300 years ago, when she followed Yu Yuan and scattered a group of girls. During those years, she was the one who drove away the girls who liked Yu Yuan with all kinds of reasons and excuses. For example, Yu Yuan had to concentrate on comprehending the principles of medicine and study new alchemy techniques if he wanted to refine pills. Crack. The crisp sound of the earth cracking came from the deep sea where Zhou Yu and Du Yuan had dived. Rays of icy light and cold light shot out, causing the icy world to finally disintegrate, shattering into large pieces of void meteorites. Zhou Yu let out a muffled groan and flew out of the deep sea, dragging the unconscious Du Yuan. Alonso's sneak attack worsened Du's injuries. He almost died. As soon as Zhou Yu left the sea, he threw Du Yuan to Yu Mu and Mo Baichuan. Frowning deeply, he pointed down and shouted, "He wants to destroy the entrance of the frigid abyss and make Howren lose one forever. Damn that Alonso, he's like a ghost that won't go away. He wants to drag a few people down with him." Alonso. It's Alonso again. Junchen, Tiantsang, and Mo Baichuan's expressions changed slightly. They had noticed that Alonso had left with the 4 platinum Azuras and some Azura clansmen with the help of the crystal ball. The Firefly domain was about to be destroyed, and the primal Chaos Koan was destroying everything. Why did Alonso stay? What was the point of staying? Was it to destroy the entrance of the frigid abyss? Boom! Splash! The sea surged and the earth sank. The area where the entrance of the frigid abyss was located was covered in thousands of bolts of golden lightning and silver light. The fierce bear's enormous eyes burned with anger as it looked at the flooding sea and the bottom of the sea that had broken away from the stars. The entrance of the frigid abyss. Alonso's cold voice came from the dry bottom of the sea. He stood on the silver bottom of the sea, holding the silver spear that had lost its tip, and looked up at the people above him. Piece after piece of land split apart from where he was standing. A golden light, which seemed to be formed by the essence of his blood, covered the place where the entrance of the frigid abyss was supposed to be located. The Azura race has lost a star domain, and Howren should also lose an entrance to the frigid abyss. He looked no longer at the fierce bear, but at Junchen, Mo Baichuan, and the others. I knew that the entrance to the frigid abyss could stabilize Howren, and you don't have the ability to build another one. In that case, why don't you ask Yu Yuan to hand over the dragon beheading platform in exchange for the entrance to the frigid abyss? Then, he stabbed the silver spear in his hand into the ground. Crack! Crack! Tens of thousands of silver light blades sliced through the underwater world, causing the already fragile land to finally shatter into meteorites that filled the sky. He, on the other hand, was standing on the largest meteor, enveloping the entrance of the frigid abyss with his golden blood as he calmly bargained with the guests from the vast sea. The dragon beheading platform is divided into 3 parts, and the most important one is enough to suppress Howren's dragon fortune. Alonso talked as if he knew everything about Howren. The dragon beheading platform in Yu Yuan's hands is not as important as the entrance to the frigid abyss. He raised his voice. Whoosh! Yu Yuan was forced to fly out of the cold mist on the dragon beheading platform, and looked down at him from the sky. Yu Yuan laughed. Alonso's face trembled slightly as he suppressed the flames that were about to erupt in his heart. His handsome face looked strange and sinister. This was a sign that he was about to lose control. Yu Yuan shook his head and smiled. Chief Commander, you think too highly of yourself. What do you mean? Alonso responded in a dry voice. I'm here. Who dares to force me to give up the dragon beheading platform in exchange for the entrance to the frigid abyss that you're suppressing? Yu Yuan was extremely arrogant. The only thing that can restrain me has been hurt by you. It won't care about the entrance to the frigid abyss, the dragon beheading platform, or the death of Howren. I really don't know where you get the confidence to threaten me. You make me laugh. You seem to have lost so much that you can't even tell east from west. Chapter 1374. On the dragon beheading platform, Yu Yuan had a carefree smile on his face, but the look in his eyes and the words he said were extremely arrogant. His black hair was fluttering in the wind. After the divine sword left his hand, he did not feel dispirited or disappointed. Instead, he was still in high spirits. He had just broken through to the Yang spirit realm, but he gave the people present the feeling that he was on par with Alonso, a 10th level Golden Azura, in terms of status and super fighting capacity. There was also a kind of arrogance and carelessness in his behavior when facing Alonso, which showed that he did not take Alonso seriously. The original guy is gradually recovering. There are some things in his bones that will never disappear. Tian Tsang stood to one side, paying attention to his every move. Looking at his casual movements and sensing the aura he released, he thought to himself. Tian Tsang vaguely felt that after the Yin spirit, Yu Yuan, who had also successfully built his Yang spirit, was closer to the real awakening. The Yin spirit, the Yang spirit, and then the primordial spirit would awaken step by step and return step by step. Tian Tsang was well aware that every time Yu Yuan made a breakthrough in his cultivation, he would be closer to the real dragon beheading platform. When his true soul transformed into a nascent divinity, his lost memories, the knowledge, power, and the soul structure he had accumulated over tens of thousands of years would suddenly emerge. At that moment, the experience and wisdom of Yu Yuan's 3 lives would merge into one and help him return to the peak. It was also possible that he would surpass the dragon slayer of his first life, and take another step forward in his combat capacity and understanding of the universe. I'm really looking forward to it. There was longing in Tian Tsang's eyes. He also wanted to see the real return of that person and the Shunhun sect once again to take revenge on the primordial spirits and demon gods of the 5 supreme forces in Howren. Alonso. A disdainful smile appeared at the corner of Yu Yuan's mouth again. You are very selfish. When the Chaos Kun crashed into that star, if you fought with a spear, as long as you heard it, it would keep staring at you in a violent state. You could also lead it to another place so that the most important star in this world would not explode. As long as that star is not destroyed, the deaths in the Firefly domain can be stopped. Shaking his head, Yu Yuan spoke again. Snow Bear has made a choice, and you have made a corresponding choice. But your choice has destroyed that planet and the Firefly domain. Therefore, you, Alonso, single-handedly caused the destruction of this star area. With the help of the dragon beheading platform's power, his words resounded in the destroyed galaxy. The surviving 8th grade Azura warriors might be able to hear it from the other side of the starry river. He said it for everyone to hear. That's the reason. Mo Baichuan from the Primal Yang sect watched as Yu Mu carried Du Yuan on his back and used wisps of water like sword light to remove the silver blood power from Du Yuan's flesh. Then, he raised his hand and tossed a crimson pill to Yu Mu. Then, Mo Baichuan floated down in the void in front of Alonso. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 9 suns of different colors appeared behind Mo Baichuan. It was as if he had become a god of fire, controlling suns, volcanoes, earthly flames, and meteors. Countless fiery inscriptions formed in the 9 suns, like billions of mosquitoes. The mysteries of fire and lightning that he had comprehended came from the blazing suns. I am Mo Baichuan. With a soft cry, he suddenly descended to the same level as Alonso. The silvery white, rocky ground where he landed seemed to be melted by blazing flame power. Not only did white mist rise from it, but wisps of liquid also formed. Because Jining Shuang had been injured, because Du Yuan had almost died, and because Alonso had covered the mouth of the frigid abyss with his golden blood, the sect master of the extreme Yang Mountain was finally enraged. Please let me see all the wonders of your golden blood. Boom. Mo Baichuan activated his Dharma idol. A towering fiery shadow stood between the 9 suns. The Tao of fire inside the Dharma idol rumbled. The small worlds that had been opened in the acupoints were like forbidden lands of fire in different time and space, erupting with sky-burning flames and magma. The blazing suns quietly transformed into towering divine mountains of fire. Thousands of veins of the great Tao were engraved on the mountain walls of the divine mountains. Mo Baichuan, the sect master of the primal Yang sect, who had always lived in seclusion and did not show his strength, had attacked decisively in the Firefly domain that was about to be destroyed, ignoring Alonso's threat and the damage to the mouth of the frigid abyss. Everyone, including Yu Yuan, was shocked by his action and found it hard to understand. Junchen was here, Tianzong was here, the White Crane was here, Brutal Bear was not in a hurry to express his position, and Yu Yuan was still mocking Alonso. He suddenly jumped out and attacked Alonso without fear of anything. What was going on? You haven't even reached the peak of the Freedom Realm. How dare you attack me? Alonso shouted angrily. Thousands of gold and silver streams of light shot out from the icy rocks under his feet. Mixed with his blood energy, they instantly rushed into Mo Baichuan's magnificent Dharma idol and the 9 scorching suns in the strange land. They collided with Mo Baichuan's understanding of the law of fire and the many subtle effects of the flame energy in the world. Find an opportunity to get the mouth of the frigid abyss out. A wisp of Mo Baichuan's mind gently rippled from Yu Yuan's lower dantian. Yu Yuan was dazed. He immediately realized that the fire-attributed spiritual treasure he had given him before contained his weak soul will, which could be used as a medium to send a message. After hearing his thoughts, Yu Yuan naturally understood that Mo Baichuan's recklessness was to provoke Alonso, so that Alonso wouldn't have time to think carefully and would drag him into a fierce battle. In this way, he would buy time for Yu Yuan to find an opportunity to break the seal of the golden blood and dig out the mouth of the frigid abyss. Mo Baichuan did this to buy time for Howren and preserve the mouth of the frigid abyss. You've gone through a lot of trouble. However, I didn't expect you to be so strong. Yu Yuan's thoughts echoed in his yellow court small heaven and earth. He didn't know if Mo Baichuan could hear them, but he said so first. After saying this, he looked seriously at the mouth of the frigid abyss that was buried by Alonso's golden blood. Even though he had the dragon beheading platform, he couldn't see through the cover of the golden blood and see the situation of the mouth of the frigid abyss. The golden radiance was like a golden bowl that covered the rocky ground. Yu Yuan could only sense that the space around her was indeed vibrating, and she could also feel the aura of an icy dragon spreading from the golden light. The spatial fluctuations and icy dragon aura were of the same origin as the space dragon and the frost dragon buried in his dragon beheading platform. They should have been formed by the power of the 2 dragon gods. Alonso thinks that after the primal chaos Koan went berserk, he is now the strongest existence in the Firefly domain. Does he think that no one can break the seal formed by his golden blood on the mouth of the frigid abyss? Yu Yuan didn't pay attention to the battle between Mo Baichuan and Alonso. He focused all his attention on the golden light. At the same time, Jun Chen, Zhou Yu, and Tian Tsang looked at the battle between the two and the golden light. At this moment, everyone's goal was the same. They wanted to take advantage of Mo Baichuan to temporarily stall Alonso, and then try their best to get the mouth of the frigid abyss without any damage. Are you sure? Zhou Yu's face darkened. He moved closer to Jun Chen and whispered. Jun Chen shook his head, his expression grim. His hand holding the bamboo flute had already bloomed with starlight that filled the sky. Tian Tsang and I can break Alonso's golden blood. The trouble is that Alonso is obviously familiar with the mouth of the frigid abyss, because he learned from it when he forged the Dark Realm Cold Well. His golden blood can explode the mouth of the frigid abyss the moment it is pierced through. It's because Alonso knows enough about the mouth of the frigid abyss that he dares to threaten us. After all, it's much easier to destroy it than to create it. Jun Chen looked somewhat helpless. Tian Tsang also nodded. He can easily destroy the mouth of the frigid abyss because his golden blood carries his soul awareness. It's like a realm barrier. When his golden blood is torn through, the special power in his blood will distort and change the veins of the spiritual formation hidden in the mouth of the frigid abyss, causing it to explode. Only by separating his golden blood from the mouth of the frigid abyss can we guarantee that the mouth of the frigid abyss will be intact after the seal is broken. With these words, Tian Tsang also showed an expression of helplessness. Mo Baichuan won't be able to hold on for long, White Crane said anxiously. Everyone immediately looked at Yu Yuan. P.S. I wish everyone good luck on the Dragon Boat Festival. Chapter 1375. In the place where the primal chaos Kuan was wreaking havoc, the 4 platinum Azuras led by Damien were hiding stealthily. Using spiritual tools, blood power, and some wisps of white mist, the 4 platinum Azuras scattered along the primal chaos Kuan's path in an attempt to awaken the berserk star behemoth. In the depths of the frigid mist, wisps of icy light that looked like ice crystals flew into Jin Yingshuang's heart. She refined them with her star frost sword, and the icy light melted into her heart, counteracting and merging with the golden light and silver wisps that had infiltrated her. After adding the icy light that originated from the frigid mist to her sword light, it became much easier for her to destroy and dissolve the golden light and silver wisp. With the help of the frigid abyss snow bear, she recovered from her injuries very quickly. The battle between Mo Baichuan and Alonso seemed to be in full swing, but the golden Azura holding a silver spear and wrapped in endless holy light wasn't affected by the flames that filled the sky at all. Alonso's armor also blocked the thousands of streams of fire, and he seemed to be handling them with ease. Even though he was seriously injured, this 10th grade golden Azura still displayed battle prowess that matched his bloodline grade. With a casual stab of his spear, which had turned into a silver stick, accompanied by streaks of golden light and streaks of lightning, hundreds of thousands of holes appeared in Mo Baichuan's 9 sons. While fighting, Alonso kept glancing at the dragon beheading platform and the place covered in golden light. Obviously, he hadn't used his full strength. All of this was seen by Yu Yuan through the dragon beheading platform. He was well aware of the internal strife and the subtle changes in the entire Firefly space zone. His insight into the big picture had reached an astonishing height. He also knew the conversation between Jun Chen and Tian Tsang and their worries. Yu Mu protected Du Yuan and kept glancing at the dragon beheading platform eagerly. Similar to Tian Tsang and Jun Chen's. Everyone expressed their thoughts clearly. They all wanted to see if he could break Alonso's golden blood seal with the wonders of the dragon beheading platform, dig out the frigid abyss, and bring it back to Howren. Howren! Yu Yuan exclaimed. Due to the collapse of that world, the spirit formations and mysterious veins that covered the ground were also gone. Even though the mouth of the frigid abyss was still there, it was completely cut off from the Howran realm. He was well aware that the world of stars where the frigid abyss mouth was hidden was incomparably unique to begin with. The laws of frost and the spiritual formations hidden underground had long since been meticulously carved when the frigid abyss mouth was located. When the world collapsed, the mouth of the cold abyss became a rootless duckweed, and it was difficult for it to communicate with Howran. The divine sword that had followed Niechingtian's will and brought the sword lights and sword intent back to Howran and the sword cavern couldn't return the way it had come. Alonso dared to be so unscrupulous because he was certain that the godly sword would not return to his hands. I don't have a divine sword. Perhaps I can try. Blood prison. As his mind flickered, he summoned the Gendo, which had sunk into one of his meridians, and it fell into his palm. Dong! Dong! The moment Gendo fell into his palm, his heart suddenly beat madly. The yang spirit that had just been forged in his flesh aura microcosm suddenly stood up straight from its meditative state. Whoosh! Bathed in crimson light, his yang spirit walked out of his flesh aura microcosm. This yang spirit replaced his true form, and gently grasped Gendo's blood prison from his true form's hand. A strange expression appeared on his face, as if he was intoxicated. Refined from blood power and soul power, this was the most unique yang spirit in the world. It was completely crimson, and the bloodline crystal chains in its body looked like interweaving crimson lightning bolt. An aura of the origin of life rippled out of Yu Yuan's yang spirit, like that of a demon or a strange beast. Shocked gazes suddenly turned to look at the yang spirit, which was standing side by side with Yu Yuan's true form on the dragon beheading platform. They felt that Yu Yuan's yang spirit seemed to be even stronger and fiercer than his true form. Yu Yuan's yang spirit was like a level 9 demon king with boundless demon blood in Howran, a level 9 strange beast from outer space, or a level 9 demon god of the blood demon clan. The yang spirit realm was originally for level 8 great demons and warriors from outer space. However, the moment Yu Yuan's yang spirit left his true form, the aura and the density of his blood revealed clearly showed that he was a great demon or a strange beast that excelled in physique and flesh. Moreover, he was taller than Gendo's true form. No wonder he's so strong and unreasonable. The one who felt it the most was the white crane. A strange light flashed in the depths of his gray eyes as he muttered in a low voice, "This guy's yang spirit is at the level of a demon king. Just his yang spirit alone is enough to be on par with me and Jinli." "You're wrong." Tian Tsang smiled and shook his head. "His yang spirit far surpasses you and Jinli in terms of changes. The foundation of his yang spirit are also not something you and Jinli can compare to. For the time being, there shouldn't be any great demon in Howran that can be compared to him." The white crane was a little unhappy at being scolded. Just as he was about to refute, shock suddenly appeared in his eyes. Under everyone's eyes, Yu Yuan, who was holding Gendo's blood prison, transformed in a way that no one could understand even in their dreams. Inside his body, the bloodline crystal chains that were as red as lightning burst out with the aura of an Azura. Inside the demonic blade he was holding, a gigantic blood soul floated out of the blade and resonated with his strange body before being assimilated. In the blink of an eye, Yu Yuan, who was holding Gendo, turned into a silver-white Azura with natural spikes on his knees, elbows, and shoulders. In his chest, there was a horn that was as hard as armor, like a silver shield. His appearance hadn't changed. He still had Yu Yuan's face and eyes. His eyes were dark red, and it was the only part of him that was different from the Azuras. The Gendo he was holding gave off an incomparably demonic aura at this moment, as if it matched his appearance and his Azura bloodline. Alonso. As soon as he opened his mouth, his voice was sharp, like a sharp blade cutting through metal. It was very special and incomparably ear-piercing. Boom. Surrounded by the 9 blazing suns, Alonso's unmoving body, which had been attacked by more than 100 laws of fire, suddenly shook because of his call. A stiff smile appeared on Alonso's face. It was as ugly as it could be. Arts, he muttered in his throat. Are you going to forget your cousin's voice? Alonso, you're good. You're willing to sacrifice anything for power and personal growth. Even your cousin, who took care of you since you were young, who was close to you, you schemed to get rid of him. Yu Yuan continued to speak in an ear-piercing voice. Alonso's face was black and white, and his eyes were extremely dark. However, he didn't refute it, which was rare. Arts, one of Gendo's masters. Zhou Yu slapped his thigh as if he suddenly understood. He said loudly, "This Gendo has changed owners many times in the universe, and one of them was a Platinum Azura of the Azura race who held it for a short time. That Azura was called Arts, and he came from a remote realm of the Azura race. If I remember correctly, that Platinum Azura called Arts didn't last long when he fought against the Devil's Palace with Gendo. He was killed by Gendo's backlash. That guy was Alonso's cousin, and he had taken care of him since he was young." Zhou Yu was very surprised. After he finished speaking, he looked at Alonso with a very thought-provoking gaze. Jun Chen, Tian Tsang, and Yu Mu were all smart people. They could roughly guess what was going on from Yu Yuan's words. Alonso had obtained Gendo from somewhere and given it to his cousin, Arts. Arts didn't know how terrifying Gendo was, so he refined Gendo with Azura blood. He thought his combat strength had skyrocketed, and he could kill everyone. However, at the most intense moment of the battle, Arts was killed by Gendo's backlash. Because of this, he became one of Gendo's 7 masters. Alonso had deliberately plotted against his cousin in order to clear the way for himself. That was why he didn't mention the danger of the demon blade and purposely gave it to him. However, after Yu Yuan's yang spirit held Gendo, he seemed to have become Arts, a Platinum Azura. Chapter 1376. No matter how they looked at it or sensed it, Yu Yuan's yang spirit body was that of a bona fide Azura, and a Platinum Azura at that. His platinum armor, sharp spikes, and the Azura blood energy coming from the depths of his organs. Even Gendo's blood prison in his hand had unknowingly turned bright silver, and the tip of the blade was spitting silver light. Except for his dark red eyes, Yu Yuan was an Azura from head to toe. Jun Chen, Zhou Yu, and the others had fought countless Azuras. They couldn't be more familiar with the characteristics and aura of the Azura race. The appearance of Yu Yuan's yang spirit in the image and aura of an Azura shocked them greatly. They had never seen a yang spirit refined by a human cultivator from Howren look like this. This wasn't a human yang spirit, but an outsider warrior from the outside world. Azura. Yu Yuan narrowed his eyes and smiled. The moment his yang spirit grasped Gendo, he easily possessed Ats. Ats, who had suffered a backlash from blood prison, had all of his memories, bloodline secrets, and impressions of Alonso and Sabonis. As a Platinum Azura, Ats used to be loyal to Sabonis, and of course he had seen Sabonis many times. He had a deep understanding of the Shura of Gojoseon, the Dark Realm, and Alonso. After possessing him, Yu Yuan had become the Azura race's know-it-all, and learned a lot about this race. Ats. Alonso, who was in a daze, felt the same familiar aura. It was as if he really saw his deceased cousin come back to life in Gendo and loudly question him. Because of the guilt in his heart, he didn't dare to face or look into Yu Yuan's eyes. His dodging, his hesitation made it impossible for him to focus on Mo Baichuan. Crack! A golden rhombus shield made a strange noise at his waist and abdomen, and then split open. Mo Baichuan's towering Dharma idol's eyes suddenly brightened, and he instantly saw an opportunity. A moment later, 9 flaming suns, the size of rice grains, suddenly appeared in the rhombus-shaped golden shield around Alonso's waist and abdomen. They seeped into Alonso's flesh through the crack. Under the rhombus-shaped golden shield, 9 crimson flames were burning fiercely at Alonso's liver and spleen. Large patches of scorch quickly spread. This rank 10 bloodline golden azura was also injured by the fire energy that contained the Tao of fire. Alonso could vaguely hear the ancient fire gods roaring excitedly. In the depths of his soul, raging flames began to burn. In that moment of carelessness, he had been injured by Mo Baichuan. Under the pain, he grunted and quickly dispelled all kinds of distracting thoughts. Boom! The mysterious crystal ball emerged from his palm, exuding an ancient and boundless dark aura. Inside the crystal ball, there seemed to be a hidden power of darkness that he summoned with his bloodline. As a result, the crystal ball turned into a dark world that exuded a deep and gloomy ancient aura. Vaguely, a dark ancient city appeared, and fierce beasts seemed to be entrenched on the city walls. The blood-stained walls were also full of claw marks, as if silently telling everyone how many fierce battles had taken place in this city. Mo Baichuan was attracted by the dark ancient city. After just 2 glances, his 3 souls trembled. He immediately knew that if it really was absolute darkness, he shouldn't be able to see anything. He could see a dark ancient city in the dark world. It must be Alonso's intention. If you want to see, then look carefully. Alonso sneered. He rubbed the crystal ball, and the dark ancient city disappeared. However, in the depths of Mo Baichuan's pupils, the mysterious dark ancient city suddenly appeared. Alonso seemed to have found a medium to send the dark ancient city to the depths of Mo Baichuan's soul as Mo Baichuan gazed at it. When there was a slight flaw in Mo Baichuan's mind, Alonso seemed to have found a medium to send the dark ancient city to the depths of Mo Baichuan's soul. Above the dark ancient city, countless cold beasts in the dark realm began to crazily attack Mo Baichuan's soul. Mo Baichuan's Dharma idol could no longer be maintained, and suddenly collapsed. Swish! 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 Thousands of golden and silver lightning bolts took the opportunity to fly towards Yu Yuan and the dragon beheading platform. However, Yu Yuan had already sensed it. The dragon beheading platform, which had his true body and his special yang spirit, disappeared the moment the first golden lightning bolt formed. "Move!" Yu Yuan shouted softly. The icy land that Alonso had covered with his golden blood seemed to have been separated from the entire space. He had secretly used the power of the dragon beheading platform to move the area covered by the golden light away from Alonso's eyes. If you want the dragon beheading platform, then let's see if you have the ability. Yu Yuan sneered, and his true body entered the dragon beheading platform. His soul shook slightly, and the dragon beheading platform appeared where the golden light was. The dragon beheading platform was also enlarged thousands of times in an instant, like an independent starry sky. The dragon beheading platform slowly pressed down. The aura that could suppress all living beings in the world and all races in the universe came from the white, heaven-splitting divine stone. Rays of light flew out of the dragon beheading platform and slashed directly at the golden light condensed from Alonso's blood essence, as if they were splitting heaven and earth when the universe was turbid. Whoosh! The sound of silk ripping apart echoed out from within the golden light. The unique ward formed by Alonso's golden blood was forcibly torn apart by the golden light. Alonso's spiritual will and every wisp of his soul burst like bubbles as soon as they were formed. It's just a few drops of your blood essence. Do you really think you're invincible? Yu Yuan's sinister laughter rang out from the dragon beheading platform and the sun god on the other side at the same time. Speaking of which, you might not believe it, but when I took the form of Ats and turned into a platinum azura, I learned all of your secrets from Ats' blood soul. Alonso's bloodline can form a subtle connection with the world barrier you've conquered. You, Alonso, have been proficient in all kinds of barriers, energy screens, and blood pattern arrays since you were young. You became the Azura race's commander-in-chief and fought in various galaxies, taking the stars from the other races. Then, with the help of the Dark Realm's cold well, you poured the power of the Dark Realm into those realms. Just like that, a part of the world became the Azura race's territory, your world. The Shura of Gojoseon, Sabonis, can see what's happening outside through the dark ancient city in the Dark Realm. After being filled with the power of the Dark Realm, the world can become Sabonis' eyes, and it can also become your foothold. Yu Yuan spoke with confidence. He had already seen through the mysteries of Alonso's bloodline. He had also used the power of the dragon beheading platform to eliminate all of Alonso's tiny thoughts in the golden light. It was impossible for Alonso to destroy the mouth of the cold abyss with a single thought. On the other side, Yu Yuan's sun god, in his Azura form, carried Gendo's blood prison and landed directly in Mo Baichuan's collapsed Dharma idol. He shouted, "What are you waiting for, everyone? The mouth of the cold abyss will be taken to the dragon beheading platform and taken away from the field of fireflies." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone suddenly looked over. Then they saw the mouth of the cold abyss, which was shaped like the dark domain cold well, but was even thicker and wider. Shrouded in a hazy cold mist, it slowly flew towards the dragon beheading platform. Golden blood spilled from the edge of the mouth of the cold abyss like a rainstorm. When everyone saw that the mouth of the cold abyss was wrapped in cold mist, they immediately realized that Violent Bear, who seemed to be uninvolved, had been secretly in contact with Yu Yuan. It was it who helped Yu Yuan protect the mouth of the cold abyss, so that it would not be stained with Alonso's blood again. Alonso, Junchen, Zhou, and the Crane of Death flew down as soon as they saw that the mouth of the cold abyss was safe. As soon as they landed on Yu Yuan's sun god, they smelled the mighty blood power from Yu Yuan's body. This also made them clearly realize that Yu Yuan's sun god did indeed have the battle strength of a 9th-level demon. The formation of the sun god of a human cultivator was the crystallization of blood power and soul power, which was already shocking enough. The sun god that had just been condensed was as strong as a 9th-level demon king, which was even more beyond everyone's understanding. It was also at this moment that they realized that the junior they had looked down on had become a real master of the same level. Chapter 1377. Roar. After a manic roar, Yu Yuan, who was holding Gendo, suddenly transformed again. The shiny silver armor, spikes, and all the characteristics of the Azura race disappeared completely. His body suddenly swelled up, and his skin became rough and cracked. Lush gray-white fur grew out of his body. As his bones became thicker, his muscles also bulged, full of strength and beauty. Sky-shaking ape. The death crane couldn't help but cry out. Right in front of Ji Hao's eyes, Yu Yuan grabbed the blade and abruptly expanded his body, transforming into a gigantic ape with a human face and a monkey body, which gave him a tremendous amount of strength. He also swung Gendo's blood prison and smashed it down like a giant blood stick. Clusters of blood souls suddenly appeared. With a loud boom, Alonso's golden body was smashed into the dark starry sky. Yu Yuan grew stronger again. In a breath's time, he had transformed into a sky-shaking ape that was 300 meters tall. His body released a violent, battle-thirsty aura that didn't fear any expert in the world. Boundless demonic energy erupted like a flood, forming a blood tide under his feet and in the starry sky around him. At this moment, Yu Yuan had become Gendo's second master, the savage sky-shaking ape of the Goblin Temple. He wielded Gendo's blood prison and fought many powerful enemies in outer space. The heaven-shaking ape's skin was thick, and its strength was shocking. Yu Yuan was the perfect example of that. He dared to fight Alonso at close range while he was falling. His muscles, which were like leather armor, were pierced by Alonso's spikes from his elbows and knees, but only wounds could be seen. No blood flowed. This also meant that even a golden azura as strong as Alonso could not penetrate the tough skin and flesh of the heaven-shaking ape without the help of the silver battle spear, nor could he damage its internal organs. Most battle-thirsty sky-shaking apes had bloodshot eyes, and they were as wild and irrational as astral beasts. However, at this moment, Yu Yuan's eyes were clear, and there wasn't the slightest hint of madness in them. Calmly, he cooperated with Zhou Yu and Tianzong and continued to use Zhendo to break Alonso's divine light shield. Sky-shaking ape. Jun Chern of the Tongtian Trading Company floated in the air and waved his sleeve. Streams of stars shot down like dazzling lightning, falling on top of Mo Baichuan's head. In the depths of Mo Baichuan's eyes, the dark realm frigid beasts that flew out of the ancient dark city were wiped out one by Jun Chen's meteor lightning. Soon, Mo Baichuan's spiritual wisdom was restored, and the hidden dangers in his mind were removed. Zhendo's 7 masters, he can transform into any of them. He seems to be able to use the bloodline powers of those people and greater monsters, as well as the exquisite moves they are good at. Jun Chen realized something and was even more shocked. True enough. After that, Yu Yuan waited for Alonso to adapt to the heaven-shaking ape's attack style before suddenly transforming into an ancient desolate sect great cultivator with a horizontally developed physique similar to Zhonglida's. Boom boom! After transforming into an ancient desolate sect great cultivator, he wasn't as strong as the heaven-shaking ape, nor did he have a freakishly strong physical defense. However, when he flew, it was difficult to distinguish his trajectory, and he moved like lightning. Zhendo, which was called Blood Prison, seemed to have become a real purgatory of blood at this moment. When the saber slashed down, the intertwining blood patterns made Alonso's bloodline feel deeply uncomfortable. Tian Tsang attacked his soul, moving around to restrict space. Occasionally, a few spatial blades would come and attack him where he landed. The white crane stayed in the void. Every time it let out a shrill cry, grayish-white blood particles would take the opportunity to seep into Alonso's open wounds. As soon as the white crane's blood power, which contained the true meaning of death, seeped into Alonso's flesh, the Azura race's world-famous self-healing ability was declared ineffective. Alonso's golden blood bubbled as if it were boiling, but his flesh and blood fibers couldn't reconnect. Aside from the founder of the Tool Sect, who was a divine-grade equipment forger, the 6 masters of the Blood Prison Saber had all been powerful experts with immense flesh auras. There was the heaven-shaking ape, the Azura race's Ats, a Freedom Realm great cultivator from the Devil's Palace, a 9th-grade warrior from the Silver Scale race, a great cultivator from the ancient Desolate sect, and a blood demon god. All of them had been killed by Zhendo's backlash, and become a cluster of blood souls. From the moment Yu Yuan's yang spirit grasped Zhendo, he suddenly established a profound resonance with the enormous blood souls. He learned about their past, comprehended the wonders of their bloodlines, and learned the battle techniques and skills they were skilled in. His guess was right. His yang spirit body was probably the most suitable existence in the boundless universe to control Zhendo. From the moment it was formed, Zhendo had completely acknowledged his yang spirit, which was different from the rest of the universe. Zhendo had only felt fear and obedience towards the him of his first life. As for his yang spirit, it had acknowledged and accepted him completely. The two were not the same. Platinum Azura, heaven-shaking ape, ancient desolate sect great cultivator. As he pondered, he used the ancient desolate sect's battle techniques to continue pressuring Alonso. At this moment, he had a feeling that even if his heart, liver, and spleen exploded in his true body, his yang spirit body would still be able to gather life essence and regenerate his organs. As long as his yang spirit was not destroyed, any injuries to his true body could be healed. As long as he had enough time, as long as he had enough life essence, as long as my yang spirit is not destroyed, my physical body will not die. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He finally understood the wonders of this yang spirit. He also knew that his years of suffering and waiting had not been in vain. This yang spirit had consumed too much of his blood energy and soul energy. It had consumed almost all of his accumulated yang spirit, and it had not disappointed him. Alonso, you're just SOSO. Jun Chun pointed down with his bamboo flute. The starlight that filled the sky broke through Alonso's golden sacred shield and crushed many silver lightning bolts, causing Alonso to sink again. At this time, Mo Baichuan and Tian Song, who had regained their senses, took the opportunity to attack below. Yu Yuan and Zhou Yu exchanged a glance and also chose to follow. The broad crane wings of the crane of death spread out, spreading the aura of death and enveloping a small part of the starry river. Then, tiny amounts of death essence sprinkled down like a drizzle, eroding Alonso's flesh and blood. The Azura commander was besieged by the experts from Howran in the destroyed Firefly starfield. His situation was not good. On the other side, Wild Bear stood motionless, watching Alonso being besieged with cold eyes. It did not choose to help. It appeared to be very calm and restrained, as if it had expected that Alonso's many schemes would eventually lead to such a result. The dark domain frigid well had been destroyed. Sabonis could not come. No one could make the final decision to change the situation. As for the 4 platinum Azuras hiding next to the primal Chaos Kuan, they could not see what was happening in this part of the Starry River, nor did they know that Alonso's plan had been ruined. Woo! It let out a low roar and looked at the mouth of the frigid abyss, which was slowly falling into the dragon beheading platform and wrapped in cold mist. In the inner world of the dragon beheading platform, Yu Yuan's true body was also nervous and slightly uneasy as he watched the cold mist take the mouth of the frigid abyss through the thin light screen and enter the dragon beheading platform. If the dark domain frigid well was a well, then the mouth of the frigid abyss was a stairwell, because it was not only wider than the dark domain frigid well, but also much longer. The mouth of the frigid abyss was more than 10 times longer than the dark domain frigid well. As soon as the mouth of the frigid abyss, which was wreathed in sparkling, cold light, and entered the inner world of the dragon beheading platform, the spiritual power formations hidden in the stairwell started operating on their own. As the master of the dragon beheading platform, Yu Yuan could sense that more than a dozen strange spiritual formations had been activated at once. As soon as the mouth of the frigid abyss entered the dragon beheading platform, the auras of the space-time dragon and the frost dragon also became active. This will work. After his psychic power surged, Yu Yuan pulled the mouth of the frigid abyss like a rope and sank it into the heaven and earth where the frost dragon's corpse was buried. He even placed it on the frost WYRM's head. The mouth of the frigid abyss slowly descended, fizz, fizz. Tiny wisps of icy lightning seeped from the bottom of the stairwell to the sparkling, icy earth. As a result, some of the cracked veins in the depths of the dragon beheading platform, which had been split and lacked Tao laws, slowly healed. Yu Yuan's eyes lit up, and then he beamed with joy. The mysterious mouth of the frigid abyss hid the peak power of the frost dragon and the space-time dragon. The power of these 2 dragon gods had pierced through the mouth of the frigid abyss and brought stability to Howran, allowing the people of Howran to live in peace and focus on cultivation. The power of 3 dragon gods had been involved in the refinement of the dragon beheading platform and the construction of its inner world. Therefore, when the mouth of the frigid abyss was located, it helped the dragon beheading platform repair its incomplete Tao laws. Chapter 1378. The frigid snow bear floated above the dragon-slaying platform and guided the frigid mist inside to help the mouth of the frigid abyss sink. The moment the mouth of the frigid abyss fell into the icy ground, the frigid mist generated by it naturally melted into the place where the frost dragon was buried, adding to the dragon-slaying platform and allowing it to accumulate more supernatural abilities. But at this moment it looked somewhat lonely. At this point, no one could stop the demise of the Firefly Space Zone. Without the river of sword lights and the mouth of the frigid abyss, even the cold energy that had poured into this place over the years would dissipate. It had spent too many years guarding this place, and it had left too many memories with it. Because of the frigid mist, it lost interest in reuniting. It sensed that part of the frigid mist that was the foundation of the Firefly Space Zone had been condensed by Jining Shuang and melted into the sword will of the Starfrost to eliminate the hidden damage left by the plane landing cage. On the other side, the frigid mist that had entered the dragon-slaying platform was melted by the wonders of that world and gradually lost its connection with it. Before it completely lost its senses, it inadvertently heard a strong and powerful heartbeat. The heartbeat came from the baby Titanspinosaurus inside the purple-gold dragon egg. Then, just like Alonso, who was being beaten up by so many experts, the pressure in its blood rose spontaneously. Before the frigid mist dissipated, it took the opportunity to glance at the dragon egg in an instant. It knew why Alonso and Sabonis were willing to disobey it and imprison it with the plane landing cage. They wanted to seize the dragon-slaying platform that was under Yu Yuan's control. The baby Titanspinosaurus had been hatched by Yu Yuan in the dragon-slaying platform, and it had already completed its initial growth. It had thought that life was meaningless, but the light of hope was reignited in its eyes. After a roar, it condensed into a streak of white lightning and charged at the crescent moon that was about to disintegrate. It wanted to use the crescent moon in the Firefly Space Zone, its essence, and the wonders of Yu Yuan and the dragon-slaying platform to breed a brand new creature. The Firefly Star Zone was about to be destroyed. It thought that its arrangements were meaningless. It was not until now that it realized that the dragon-slaying platform was so miraculous that it might be able to replace the Firefly Space Zone and store the essence of the moon like the frigid abyss. Then, with that drop of blood essence, it would give birth to a life form that was closely related to it and regarded it as its ancestor. In its entire life, even after tens of millions of years, it still couldn't take that final step. Perhaps the life it created might have hope. It had regained the meaning of life. Whoosh! Thick darkness and absolute coldness flowed out of the crystal ball and wrapped around the fleeing Alonso. It was like a dark world drifting into the distance. It floated towards the place where the primal chaos Kuan was wreaking havoc. Due to the collapse of numerous realms and the shattering of realm barriers, Alonso could no longer rely on his bloodline wonders to reach the realm barrier of another realm through the crystal ball. At this moment, he could only rely on the divine power of his golden blood to release the cold power of the dark realm within the crystal ball. Relying on the cold power of the dark realm, he strengthened his strength slightly. Besieged by Zhou Yu, Junchen, the Death Crane, Missouri Baichuan, Tian Tsang, and Yu Yuan, he flew through the shattered starry river that was riddled with spatial rifts, blood and flesh splashing everywhere. Jun Chern and the others chased after him relentlessly. Streams of starlight, lava pools, death power, and vortexes of souls poured into the darkness one after another. They didn't enter the darkness themselves. Instead, they attacked Alonso from the depths of the darkness, while maintaining a suitable distance from him. Swoosh! Carrying Gendo, Yu Yuan, who had reappeared in his primitive form, stopped halfway. At this moment, Alonso was no longer in the mood to fight. His plan in the domain of the Firefly Star Zone had failed miserably. It was rare for a rank 10 Golden Azura to end up in such a state. The psychic awareness of his yang spirit and his true body could communicate in an instant in a part of the starry river. With just a thought, He could use the wonders of the dragon beheading platform to arrive there in an instant. However, he knew that the current situation was very good. The mouth of the frigid abyss was also helping the dragon beheading platform repair its internal damage. His yang spirit didn't need to return at all. With Junchen, Tian Tsang, Mo Baichuan, Zhou Yu, and the White Crane, Alonso's escape route would continue to be injured. Even if he joined in, the most he could do was add a few more wounds to Alonso's body. Even if he had the battle prowess of a demon king and could switch between the Azuras, the Silver Scales, and the greater demons, he still couldn't kill Alonso with one strike, nor could he kill him. In that case, looking up, he looked at the place where the cold mist was dense. With a faint smile, he floated into it. Inside the white mist, Jining Shuang sat upright in the air, the snow-white blade of the Starfrost sword resting on her knees. The scabbard on her back was constantly gathering the cold power of this place. After the cold power entered the scabbard, it went straight to her Huangting microcosm and hid in her limbs and bones. Then, after being washed by her sword light, it could be used on her heart. Narrowing his eyes, Yu Yuan saw that most of the thin golden and silver threads in her broken heart had been removed. There's one thing that Alonso probably didn't expect. Jining Shuang opened her eyes, the depths of which were shining brightly. There was a relaxed smile on her beautiful, small face. He didn't expect that you would directly and completely destroy the plain falling cage. Yu Yuan nodded with a smile. If the plain falling cage wasn't destroyed, the golden lightning and silver threads that penetrated my heart could continue to hurt me. Because the plain falling cage could continuously provide me with power, before I rushed out of the Firefly starfield, my heart would have been injured to the point where it couldn't be healed. I might even have to abandon this fleshly body of mine. Jining Shuang showed a relieved expression as if she had survived a disaster. It's because the plain falling cage was destroyed that the golden lightning and silver threads couldn't become stronger. Therefore, every time they were worn down, I would feel a little better. I have to thank that wild bear. The cold mist it brought was refined by my Star Frost sword light, and it was also very effective against the destructive power of the plain falling cage. It was obvious that it was only a matter of time before her injuries were healed. Your son's spirit. She was slightly surprised. She stared at Yu Yuan from left to right and clicked her tongue in wonder. Fortunately, I didn't fail you. After I stripped that wondrous item that was closely related to the entire Howren, I threw it into the dragon beheading platform, Yu Yuan said with a smile. I just saw it. Jining Shuang pursed her lips slightly. I knew it would end up like this. How did you know? Yu Yuan was surprised. Because you've never disappointed me. Although you used to talk big time and time again, you were always able to produce miraculous pills. However, you are always able to concoct miraculous pills. The medicinal effects and effects of those pills are exactly the same as what you said. When she spoke of this, her face glowed with a different kind of spirit. Back then, you were an alchemist. Now, you have stepped onto the path of cultivation. Your battle prowess is actually the same as the pills you refined back then. Ha ha ha! Yu Yuan laughed as he walked up to her and sat cross-legged in front of her. The destruction of the domain of Firefly was already halfway through. At this moment, there were only a few stars that hadn't exploded yet. The death of this domain was irreversible. No one could change it. Yu Yuan, who had obtained the mouth of the frigid abyss, didn't care whether this domain could survive or not. He and Jining Shuang sat in the depths of the frost mist, in a place where no one could see or sense them, and had a long talk. Time seemed to have stopped because of this, and it became meaningless, after an unknown period of time. Your senior brother actually had his reasons. He didn't want to kill you, Jining Shuang suddenly said. Her gaze became complicated. I went to find him several times. When I first found him and attacked him, he was actually stronger than me. He could have killed me. He could have killed me, because of his noble identity as the medicine god and the fact that I provoked him. The sword sect couldn't pursue the matter or do anything to him. He didn't do that. He was always dodging and never attacked back. Later, when I broke through to the Freedom Realm, my Starfrost sword became even more powerful. He gradually found it difficult to deal with it. He was annoyed by my pestering, so he told me that you were still in the mortal world. He was the one who gave me hope and told me to wait patiently. He said that a miracle would happen. He said that the day would come when you would return. There was indeed something wrong with the reincarnation pill, and he was the one who created it. However, he seemed to already know that there would either be a problem with your reincarnation or you would be killed. At this point, Jining Shuang stopped. Chapter 1379. Jining Shuang's words made Yu Yuan fall into a long silence. Yu Yuan had actually heard similar words from Chu Yao once before. However, because he was prejudiced against Chu Yao, he wouldn't believe it until Chu Yao returned to Haohong and he figured it out. But now, it wasn't Chu Yao who said these words, but Jining Shuang. His senior martial brother was well aware that there was something wrong with the reincarnation pill. But if it hadn't been for it, what would have happened to him? Suddenly, he thought of Fu Xianwen, who had died in the domain of illusion. This Xuantianzong Grand Cultivator had always hated the Medicine God sect. Fu Xianwen had once boasted that he would make the Medicine God sect and the Tool sect serve the cultivators and demons who were fighting in outer space, and provide them with pills and tools for free. This stubborn and extreme Freedom Realm Grand Cultivator had once made a scene in the Medicine God sect, and was forbidden from returning to Haoran. He had once said that one day 300 years ago, he heard the voice of Sect Master Han Guiyuan, who asked him if he was interested in secretly returning to Haoran to help him get rid of someone. According to him, the person Han Guiyuan wanted to get rid of was him, who had fallen to the path of evil and was dedicated to the study of poison pills. Could it be Han Guiyuan? Senior martial brother was coerced by Han Guiyuan, and knew that the sect master of Xuantianzong represented the 5 major forces and wanted to get rid of him. In order to prevent this from happening, he tampered with the reincarnation pill? Is senior brother doing this to protect me so that I can continue to live on? Chu Yao had also said that the reincarnation pill would only put him to sleep, not death. Now, combined with Jining Shuang's words, Yu Yuan was suddenly at a loss. Could it be that he had always been in the wrong? He muttered to himself. You can ask Zhong Chichen for the details when you return to Haoran. Jining Shuang appeared to be very calm. After she finished speaking, she frowned and said, however, I heard that the Zhong guy's condition is not very good. After he broke through to the Freedom Realm, he rarely cared about the internal affairs of the Medicine God sect. Everything was assigned to Chu Yao. He rarely showed himself and rarely refined medicine. My guess is that there's something wrong with his body. Yu Yuan's face darkened and he didn't say anything for a long time. He couldn't help but recall his past with Zhong Chichen, as well as the details before he swallowed the reincarnation pill. Before the competition for the position of the medicine god, he and Zhong Chichen had always been close. After he took over the medicine god sect, Zhong Chichen turned his attention to cultivation. He stopped refining elixirs and immediately broke through several realms. For a long time, he and Zhong Chichen did not meet, and there was no conflict between them that could not be resolved. Therefore, when something happened to the reincarnation pill, he also felt strange and surprised. He thought that Zhong Chichen wanted the position of sect master of the medicine god sect. However, after his earth soul and heaven soul returned and he woke up in the Yu family, he deliberately looked into the past and found that his senior brother did not seem to care about the position of sect master. Zhong Qichen quickly handed over the affairs of the sect to Chu Yao and focused on cultivating Chu Yao. He did not care about the affairs of the world. Since Zhong Qichen was not greedy for the power of the sect master, why would he harm him for the sake of seizing the position? Yu Yuan rubbed his chin, his eyes deep. After a long time, he nodded. It seems that it's time for me to return to Hauran. Well, if you go back now, you'll have endless glory. Jining Shuang's lips curled into a strange smile. Just his son's soul alone had the combat strength of a demon king. It could also transform into an Azura, a silver-scale warrior, a demon god of the blood demon tribe, and a freedom realm cultivator of the ancient Baron sect and the Devil's Palace. Such a Yu Yuan could almost do whatever he wanted in the new Hauran world. This was because the 5 supreme forces, the Shunhun sect, and the Chamber of Commerce had reached a tacit understanding and a secret agreement. In Hauran, the two sides would not continue to fight bloody battles, and they would not destroy each other's foundation for the sake of mutual conflicts. In such a situation, Yu Yuan, who had the dragon beheading platform and had also dug out the mouth of the cold abyss from the Firefly Star Zone, could walk around Hauran openly. He, who had obtained the mouth of the cold abyss, would be regarded as a meritorious person, and the 5 supreme forces would also turn a blind eye to it. You don't say. After drifting outside for so long, I do miss Hauran a little. Yu Yuan rubbed his chin. At this time, in the Firefly Star Zone, didn't Mo Baichuan, Jun Chen, Zhou Yu, and the others join forces? Once they encountered a common enemy and trouble that was enough to threaten Hauran, the people and demons from that world would habitually join forces. No matter whether there were differences in ideology, no matter whether there was hatred or not. Fighting against the outside world first and then fighting among themselves was the consistent policy of Hauran. With the mouth of the frigid abyss in his hand, he could easily return to Haowang with the help of the Lair of Death in the Dark Wing domain. Perhaps he could even get the heaven-raising sword and find his senior martial brother to find out the truth. In the depths of the cold fog, the two people who had been separated for 300 years began to talk about what they should do after returning. At this time, the Chaos Kuan, who was being attacked by the 4 Platinum Azuras in an attempt to wake it up, still showed no signs of waking up. It roared all the way and gradually rushed to the other side of the starry sky. Judging from its posture, it would not be long before it left the Firefly Star Zone. Wrapped in darkness, Alonso kept sending messages with a secret method. Finally, it attracted the attention of Shirala and the others. The 4 of them also saw Jun Chen and the others following behind and attacking Alonso like lightning. Seeing that the situation was not good, the 4 Platinum Azuras immediately went to meet it. At the same time, in the illusory domain of Dark Forest, Great Demon Lulu, Heisun, Heavenly Demon Green Nightmare, and other powerful experts met up with Chao Jiaza, Wei Zhua, and other Hauran experts on their way to the Firefly Star Zone. The two sides only met for a brief moment before rushing into the Firefly Star Zone. As soon as they entered, they saw that the Sea of Stars, which used to be full of vitality, was a mess. Stars were exploding and turning into icy meteors everywhere. It had become similar to the domain of Dark Forest before it had become illusory. The laws of Tao had collapsed, and the stars no longer existed. This is... Heavenly Demon Green Nightmare took a deep breath and looked at the destroyed starry river. His expression suddenly became serious. He had been to this part of the starry sky before. As an outstanding heavenly demon, Green Nightmare had been to this part of the starry sky before he had been imprisoned in the forbidden land of the fallen moon. He knew that the Firefly Star Zone had been prosperous, but now it seemed that no one could change the death of the Firefly Star Zone. How did it end up like this? Chao Jiaza, Wei Zhua, and the other Hauran Grand Cultivators, who were not far from the domain of Dark Forest, had explored the illusory domain of Dark Forest, but found nothing. They were also shocked by the scene before them. A primal Chaos Kuan. Green Willow, who was dressed in green garments and had emerald green vertical eyes, could be seen in the depths of his pupils. A berserk star behemoth destroyed the domain of Dark Forest. But how did that ferocious star behemoth fall into such a frenzy? Green Nightmare and Hei Sun followed his gaze. However, they didn't see anything. Alonso. Green Willow let out another low howl as he noticed a familiar aura moving in the depths of the frigid darkness. He also saw Jun Chen, Zhou Yu, and the others attacking from behind the frigid darkness. Green Willow, who had come from the domain of Dark Wing in an attempt to open the mouth of the frigid abyss, and Hei Sun were all flabbergasted. A rank 10 golden Azura was being chased and killed in the Firefly domain of the Azura race? What on earth had happened here? They had met Alonso before, and knew that this Azura Chief General was as difficult to deal with as Sabonis. Not only did he possess extraordinary battle prowess, but he also had many precious treasures of the Azuras. It was unlikely that a golden Azura would be forced into such a sorry state by Jun Chen, Tian Tsang, and Zhou Yu. Only if Alonso had been seriously injured and damaged too many of his spiritual tools would he have ended up like this. Howl! The fierce bear's howl echoed in every corner of the domain of Dark Forest, and attracted everyone's attention. The fierce bear had a crescent moon over its head, which looked like a towering snowy mountain peak. Dragging the crescent moon behind it, it rapidly flew towards a certain location. The Dragon Beheading Platform. Yu Yuan. The Dragon Beheading Platform, which was emanating white light at the center of the starry river, entered everyone's sight. Hey, what took you so long? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.